Chapter 101. 8 Lives. Ori's new truck met with good reception. Rebecca was ecstatic they wouldn't have to drive around in his old piece of shit anymore. Six was happy to not have to constantly bend over in order to fit inside, and Sasha was a huge fan of his new sound system. The group continued taking jobs, most of them small outside of the couple Susie sent them concerning Tiger Claw movement in Watson. They'd all but expelled them from the territory, not directly but by sending their locations and evidence of crimes to the NCPD. Not honorable to most gangers, but who cared what they considered honor anyway. They'd just been hired to protect a building hosting the servers for an upcoming drone shopping service company, as the owners of it had caught news of a potential sabotage coming from their competitor. The group had set up an ambush and waited for half the day until some hostile mercs hired to destroy the place approached. With Sasha's control of the area's technology and the crew's overall advantage in weaponry, the fight didn't last long at all. Unfortunately, while Ori and everyone else hadn't taken any damage, Six abruptly dropped to a knee as his body began minutely spasming. Sasha was closest and quickly rushed to him, checking him for damage and frowning heavily when she didn't find any. What's up with him? Ori quickly questions as Six empties the contents of his stomach on the ground.
No idea.
Sasha states, probably something to do with his cyberware. Six, can you hear me? The armored merc lets out a warbled groan as even his vocal cords seize. We gotta get him somewhere safe. Ori says, pausing as he tries to think of somewhere. They were currently in Vista del Rey, too far from the med center, and not anywhere near any Ripperdoc anyone knew or trusted. My apartment's near here, we can take him there. Help me get him in the truck? Sasha offers, struggling to carry Six weight on her shoulder. Ori helps, and they drop the merc on the back seat of his new truck. Rebecca, could you complete the gig? I'll call you later, let you know how he's doing. Ori asks with an almost pleading look. She waves him off. Yeah, just get the big lug up and ready for the next job. And don't stay the night at the cat's place or we're gonna have a big problem, she states, grabbing his collar and pulling him down for a kiss before leaving. He shakes his head, trying to rid himself of the taste of her tongue as he drops into the driver's seat. Where's your place at? Skyline East, got a small place over the river. And maybe you should call someone? Six isn't looking so good. She adds. Ori nods. I'll call Bats, get him down here. The duo drags Six up to the elevator that led to Sasha's apartment. Obviously, they weren't going to take the stairs, especially since her place was on the 6th story. After the ding announces their arrival, they all but fall out of the elevator, past some other residents of the place and finally stop at Sasha's door. She scans her palm and the door opens, revealing an almost completely pink apartment. Pink walls, pink carpet, pink ceiling, pink furniture, literally everything. He sends a confused glance at her, but she just blushes in response. Ah, come on, inside. They lay Six down on one of her large decorative sofas, and she heads to the bathroom to find some medicine that might help. Meanwhile, Ori sits by Six while looking around the place. It was kind of surprising Sasha's place was like this. To be honest, he'd have thought it would be more like Judy's, very basic, filled with tech. Meow. He looks down at his feet and almost jumps in surprise at the ball of fluff looking up at him. A cat, he wonders aloud. He thought they'd been wiped out from Night City already. Hey there, nice place.
God.
He runs a hand through its fur, drawing a purr from its throat. Her name's Miley, Sasha states as she walks over, a plastic box clutched under an armpit. She drops it next to Six and begins rifling through it, tossing away old bottles of pills while returning unsuitable medicine. There a reason you got so much? He casually inquires. She shoots him a deadpan look. Some of these are vitamins, some are mental boosters to help net running, some to get rid of the migraines too much time on the net gives, some immunosuppressants for my cyberware. Look, I've even got stuff for when Miley's not feeling well. Ori holds his hands up placatingly. I wasn't saying anything, just wondered about it. He shakes his head. Got anything that could help Six? I don't know what's wrong with him. I think it's probably his cyberware, but I'm not going to risk giving him anything until your friend gets here, she states, taking her cat into her arms and smooshing her cheek against it. Hello, Miley. I'll feed you later, Turpin. Six. Ori asks the merc, waving his hand in front of his face, drawing no reaction. He sighs, resting his forehead in his hand. Just struggle through it. You'll make it, he quietly utters. Sasha drops her cat onto Ori's lap and checks Six pulse once again, finding it to be stable, despite most other of the man's muscles spasming. At least his heart wasn't the same. Hey, Ori starts, attempting to bring his attention away from the possibility of Six dying. When'd you get the fuzzball? Said you were behind on your rent since you thought you were gonna die. I know you're not the kind of person to leave your pet alone like that. I bought Miley after you invited me to the crew. I always wanted one, but, as you said, I didn't want to leave it alone. I did have to take out a loan for her, though. Cats are expensive. Chapter 102. Terminal. Cats are expensive. I'd bet. Not even the pigeons survive this city. The only reason rats and cockroaches haven't taken over is because people eat them.
Ori remarks.
Isn't there a big ass tax for pet owners too? Sasha nods. There is, but I'm not paying it. Miley doesn't exist, but if she does, she's my hairier-than-normal daughter. She smiles as they both chuckle. You figure out what you want to do yet? You know, a goal aside from destroying Biotechnica? Sasha shakes her head. It's hard. I dedicated everything since I was a girl to hit them. Now, I just want to live, I think. Well, as good a goal as any. Not that your chosen profession supports it. She shrugs. I'd rather work with you all than jump between people as a solo netrunner. There are worse things than death for people like me. Knock, knock, knock. It's open. Sasha calls out, allowing Bats to step inside with a large briefcase at his side. He was sweating and out of breath, as if he'd run here. That him? Bats asks, immediately heading to 6 without waiting for an answer. He kneels next to him and opens his briefcase, revealing a litany of tools and devices. Tell me what happened. He just, dropped. There was no lead-up, and he didn't take any damage. His legs just gave out. I don't think he's lucid either. He won't talk to us at all. Sasha adds. Bats nods as he jacks a wire into 6's neck, linking it to his laptop. I think I know what it is, but I'm gonna run a scan just to confirm. Either of you got immunosuppressants? I brought some, but it might not be enough if this is what I think it is. Yes, here. She hands him her own bottle, her face forming a frown. Do you really think it's that? That? Ori questions, not getting her meaning.
Cyberpsychosis, oi.
Bats quietly answers. Cyb, no way. 6 wouldn't let something like that get him.
Ori exclaims.
Bats shakes his head. You're right. He's too strong to admit he's having trouble. Tell me, have you noticed anything else before now? He's in the early to mid stages of the condition already. Like what? Ori asks, his voice tense. Murmuring, shaking, hallucinations, clumsiness, violent outbursts. Anything out of the ordinary? Bats lists off, tone neutral. Ori's throat goes dry. Yeah, he'd noticed. 6 shaking, beating the shit out of that tiger claw asshole. Even noticed him muttering things to himself. He lets out a cold breath. Why? Is all he could voice. Why am I asking? Why? Is this happening? Bats shrugs and pulls the jack from 6's neck. There's no reason for it. Too much cyberware, mental illness, drug overuse. Either way, 6 is headed towards the edge. He turns his laptop to face them, pointing out the large brainwave spikes that indicate the condition. Is there anything that can be done? A way to reverse it? That Regina woman said there was research, didn't she? Sasha asks. I don't know. I haven't seen a single case of cyberpsychos returning to normal, whether that be suppressed information, or because there are simply no examples. I know drastically reducing the amount of cyberware you have could help, but he glances at 6. Most of his body has been replaced already. There's no reversing that. He turns 6's head to the side and feeds him pills, washing it down with water and massaging his throat to get it into his system. So, what? He's just fucked then? Ori questions, attempting to suppress his anger over the situation.
Oi.
Bats mutters, unsure of what to say. Listen, I know you're friends, but if this carries on, he won't be safe to be AR-. Ori abruptly stands up. I need a cig, he growls, headed to the balcony overlooking the river. That wasn't smart, was it? Bats asks Sasha, who just nods in response. I'll check on him, she says, picking up Miley and heading to the balcony. She steps out, finding Ori leaning against the railing with his cig already half burned out. Hey, don't bother. He rubs his face. I'm not angry at Bats, just pissed that shit like this keeps happening. You want to talk about it? She asks, letting Miley hop out of her arms and circle Ori's feet. What's to talk about? 6 is dying. There's nothing we can do. In a couple months he won't recognize us, and will probably try and kill us. She rests her lower back against the railing, holding her hand out. Ori hands her a cig and lights it, allowing her to take a few puffs. How'd you and 6 meet anyway? She asks, wanting to get him focused on something else. My first gig, Judy sent me to work under some asshat calling himself Spectrum, or some shit. First saw him and Max in that burger joint. He chuckles to himself. They scared the shit out of me. 2 big-ass mercs who could probably destroy me in a second if they wanted to. Yet I was working with them, getting paid like I was the same as them. Everyone's got to start off somewhere. I was 11 when I got my first gig. Some corpo kids hired me to crack the child locks on their devices. They didn't even pay me. Meow. That's right, Miley. I got my revenge years later and permanently set all their things on child mode. 30,000 eddies down the drain. Should have just paid me the 1,000. Ori chuckles, blowing some smoke. I don't think 6 liked me all that much when Max took me in. I was just a leech, thinking back on it. Max pulled me along on jobs where I wasn't needed. 6 just kept silent, but I could tell it was annoying him. Then, the scavs got Max after I sent him after them. He sadly shakes his head. I still wonder if Six resents me for it. He wouldn't say so if it did. I don't think so. He's someone who finds it difficult to voice his feelings, in my opinion. She adds the last part. Ori sighs. I doubt I'm even near as competent as Max was. Guy had no cyberware at all, and was still very good at what he did. Don't think like that. Even if he is or was, you're still young. You can learn. Besides, you got the rest of us relying on you. I wouldn't follow someone useless. Rebecca wouldn't. Probably. Six definitely wouldn't. Ori just flicks away his burn down cig. Whatever. Enough of the pep talk. Let's see how he's doing. Chapter 103, Downturn. Elsewhere. Kat wipes her mouth after emptying her stomach in the small toilet her cell had been provided. No matter how much time passed, she felt like her opportunities for leaving the place were quickly dwindling. Her savior, Fujino Kiyoshi, had been doing his best to get her out. Unfortunately, his best wasn't enough to save her from his colleagues' predations. She only felt the aftereffects of it, but knowing night after night her body was being treated that way was quickly wearing on her. He'd created a plan which he'd explained to her, but she was very doubtful it was going to work as he thought. Honestly though, she didn't think she'd care if she and he died during it. At least then she'd have some amount of peace, dead or not. The only reason she believed that he actually wanted to follow through on his words was because of what he told her. Apparently they'd killed someone precious to him, causing his change in loyalties. He wasn't lying. She could tell by the look in his eyes. She'd learned to pick out the intent of people back in Ksenia, but now it had proven a valuable if somewhat useless skill here. It wasn't like she could avoid people who had it out for her. She sighs, pulling at her long, matted, sticky black hair that had been allowed to grow with her lack of grooming equipment. You'd have thought these fuckers would like their girls to look good. Maybe not. Or maybe they preferred her like this instead of her favored tomboy look. She feels bile rise from her throat again, prompting her to grab the toilet bowl once more. Hello, Night City. Christy Clert's bandmate, Faye Yono screams at the huge, gathered crowd through her microphone. Yeech. Thousands of people cheer in response, shouting to grab their favorite idol's attention. Are you ready to get your circ smashed? Sheila Curves, her other bandmate, shouts afterwards, drawing a similar reception. Then, the two women glance over at Christy, who'd been standing silently behind her microphone with her eyes locked on the VIP area. She squeezes her legs together slightly, inwardly cursing at the very short skirts they'd been told to wear. It was supposed to tease the audience on what was underneath, only allowing those close enough, specifically in the VIP area, to actually get a peek. There was a reason those tickets were restricted. The corpos who had contacts, or paid to be there, were fine, but the fucking creep with his hand bouncing underneath his baggy trousers made her want to scrub herself with wire. Ori, you idiot. Poste, are you going to get a hold of yourself or not? Faye Yono quickly asks her, facing away from the microphone. Christy looks forwards, realizing that the whole place was looking at her expectantly. She shakes her head, performing one of the band's trademarked poses. Are we going to go somberly? Hell no. The crowd roars back, their music kicking into gear as they'd practiced. Christy lets out a silent sigh and joins her bandmates, forcing herself to grit her teeth and get through the concert. If she was lucky, she wouldn't have to talk to the creep Ori sold his ticket to, or the corpos who'd paid to try her out. So what? There's no cure or anything. What's the point of your fucking research then? Ori shouts over the holocall. I said there's no instant cure. That doesn't mean you can't do anything. Listen, and don't interrupt me. Your friend needs help. This is both a psychological condition as it is a physical one. If he's working with you as a merc, stop. Putting him in violent, stressful situations will only exacerbate it. Pull him out of work, uninstall any physically or mentally straining cyberware, and allow him to rest. Regina states. Stop him from working? Remove his cyberware? You do understand where we live, right? Night City. A place where people don't just tell you to go fuck yourself, they act on it. My friend, would be angry with me just for calling you about this, let alone telling him to sit back while we do the work. Not to mention, he needs eddies, he argues. Then he'll go cyber psycho, and you'll either have to put him down, or give him to me to help move along the research. I'm being straight with you. Those are your only two real options. Regina neutrally says. Is there really nothing? Like, just to tide him over? He'll be able to stop working eventually, but he needs time for that. Immunosuppressants push it back a little, but when they wear off it comes back full force. Like using monofiber bandages, stems the bleeding, but a single hit and you're worse off than before. Keep him out of direct combat, and do not give him free rein in stressful situations. I've seen it more than once, guys going berserk and gunning down their friends. She seriously explains. You really think he'd attack one of us? Ori questions, not wanting to believe it despite hearing so from an expert on the condition. Regina nods. It's not whether I think so. It's how long will it take to reach that point? Months? Weeks? Push him hard enough, and there's no telling how bad your friend could get. Okay, I need to think this all over. Ori mutters, going to disconnect but pausing when she speaks up. Oh, and keep him away from anything that could alter him mentally. Mainly drugs, be they beneficial or not. This includes painkillers, so bear in mind. Yeah, got it. Thanks for hearing me out. No problem. Beep. Ori falls into his couch and runs a hand through his hair. Now, how to get Six to do any of that? Probably shouldn't have left him on his own, come to think of it. After Six awakened in Sasha's apartment, he basically ignored everything they said, saying he was just sick and needed to sleep it off. That was last night. He headed back to his place, and while Ori had wanted to come and keep an eye on him, the refused. It wasn't like he could force the matter. Six was a grown man. Having someone pity and treat him like a basket case probably wasn't going to help things either. Fuck. Chapter 104. Bitch. An awkward week passes, Six's condition remaining unspoken despite the group's various attempts to broach the subject. Unfortunately, despite Regina's recommendations, Six pushed them to increase the number of gigs they took. If Ori refused, he'd simply take some alone, forcing the group to accompany him in fear of the guy getting himself killed. While Sasha was still semi-new to the group, she'd integrated well and befriended everyone. She and Rebecca still had spats, but she cared, as much as Ori and Rebecca did at the very least. It was very noticeable whenever Six had an issue. Sometimes the Merc's limbs would lock up, sometimes he'd just get exhausted out of the blue, and sometimes he started seeing people that were there. Most worryingly, Max. Beep beep. Ori jumps in his seat as his holophone starts ringing. Rebecca looked at him curiously in the passenger seat of his truck, while Six didn't even seem awake with how still he was. Sasha was also in the back, wearing a skin-tight heat-resistant Netrunner suit with her eyes glowing as she attempts to scout out the area beside them, their latest gig. Well, you gonna answer it? Rebecca urges, obviously curious. Almost all of Ori's friends were in the truck with them, so it was likely either Bats or a fixer. Rogue. He mutters, checking the caller ID. Beep. Zombie, you good to talk? Rogue questions, in her usual lounge within the afterlife. Ori nods, trusting his crew not to do anything dumb. Yeah, sup? Got some info on a certain cat, she states, causing both him and Rebecca to straighten up. You found her? He exclaims, barely keeping his voice down in order to not disturb Sasha. Rogue shrugs and crushes her cig. Kind of. One of my guys in the Tigers overheard some people talking. Apparently someone's planning to break some dolls out of their control. She lights up another cig. It won't work, obviously. If my guy heard it, the leaders in the Tiger Claws heard it. So what are you gonna do then?
Ori asks, tense.
She crooks a brow. Me? You only hired me to find her, since I don't know for sure if she's one of the dolls in that locale. Ori scowls. Yeah, I hired you. You fail if she dies during this shit show. Yeah. He already paid. Is the queen of the afterlife really gonna go back on her word? Rebecca adds, leaning on Ori's shoulder to get in the shot. Oh, you're with her? Rogue shakes her head, uncaring. Let me put it for you like this. I have no obligation to raid every single dollhouse under the Tiger Claw's control. If I did, you'd run out of funds pretty quickly. There's no concrete proof that your sister is there, and me personally acting would risk my guy. Believe me, he's far more valuable than what you paid me, she states. Then why bother fucking mentioning this if you're not gonna do shit?
Ori growls.
To give you a heads up, let you know in case you want to risk taking part, she casually explains. Rebecca just snorts, and get himself killed so you can ditch the job and keep the eddies. Ain't that right? She asks, and Rogue just stays silent, an answer in itself. Ori lets out a sigh. Where? Yo, you're not really gonna listen to her? This bitch is obviously out to get you. Rebecca exclaims, quickly prodding a finger in Rogue's direction. Doesn't matter. If there's a 1% change cat's there, then I have to go, he states with a hard look. I get that, but she's playing you. Ori ignores her and focuses on Rogue, who was just disinterestedly observing them. Where's this dollhouse? Capitola Street at the top of Japantown. Any idea when the breakout's happening? Or when the Tigers are gonna move? No idea. Within the week, maybe a little after. Rogue states, sounding more like she was guessing than relaying actual information. Ori sighs. Just send the info. You're a bitch, you know that, right? Rogue just snorts. I know. It's what I do, she retorts. Be seeing you later, zombie. Try not to die. File received. Beep. So, guess that's what we're doing next. Ori trails off as Rebecca stares at him. I know it's dumb, but she's got a rep to keep. If she actually sets me up, then that's going to shit. She doesn't have to set you up to get you killed. This is gonna be a Tiger Claw hideout on their own turf. This isn't like that Mox gig. Becca, my sister might be there. I'm going. I don't like it either, but I'm not letting my fam die. I think she might actually be there. He adds, we're going. Six makes himself known from the back, looking at the duo. Rebecca sighs, I guess it's decided then. Ori tilts his head at her. Aren't you the first one to jump at the chance to shoot something? When I know we probably aren't going to die, she retorts before shaking her head. We should ask Hugh and Judy about this. Maybe they'll help. Doubt it. Last time Susie helped was raiding a tiger claw base outside of their turf. Judy might. There's not a lot she could do, I think. Before the discussion can continue, Sasha's head lolls over as she comes to. Got it? Recorded our guy, getting to know his fiancée's sister. Pretty sure that's all we need. She pauses at the dour group. Did I miss something? Yeah. Lamppost here has signed us up for a suicide mission. To save my sister. Ori adds, sending a glare at Rebecca who just shrugs in response. We can talk about this later. Still got the debts to unpack. Let's finish this gig. Chapter 105. Aid for Hire. Unfortunately for Ori, Susie Q outright refused to help, proclaiming the mission as stupid, reckless, and bound to get everyone involved killed. Judy offered to help where she could, but that was more or less negligible with how things were. He'd looked into the files Rogue had sent him, and the situation was looking direr the time passed. The lowest estimate of the tiger claws in the building was around 50, probably more. This was even worse when you consider that tiger claw enforcements were literally next door. It wouldn't take long for triple that number to barge in and shoot the fuck out of Ori and his crew. The building itself was a front, an erotic shop selling sex toys and other things related to it. It was designed around the theme of BDSM, allowing the tigers to put metal bars and chains over every window and reinforce every entrance. On the floors second and up was where the real biz was happening. All the tigers were centered above the store, but Rogue didn't have much intel on what exactly went on there. Ori could guess, however, given that cat had been sold by that piece of shit doll techie. It made his blood boil just thinking about it. Ori was leaning towards a stealth operation, given how vastly outnumbered they were. But they needed something to fall back on if they were caught. Six wasn't suited to sneaking around, so he'd be with the backup. As for what the backup was, well, Ori had looked around for anything that'd fill that hole. He'd asked Rogue to find him some mercs to help out, but she refused. Not because she didn't want the money, or didn't want to get involved, but because the operation was so hush-hush. If she asked any merc about the gig and they refused, they'd have a potential leak there. The big people who worked under her couldn't be seen hitting the tiger claws, not without starting a big-ass gang war and throwing her from her comfortable spot of neutrality. After that, he'd intended to ask Quentin about it, until Rebecca came forward and recommended Kiwi again, along with her crew. Ori was less than happy to accept that not only would he be putting Rebecca in danger, but also her brother. That shit hit too close to home. Unfortunately, she didn't give him a choice on whether to accept or not. She simply dragged Maine and his crew along during their next debrief. Ori sighed silently to himself as he glared at the holographic map sitting atop Six's table, his garage providing a suitable hideout. Six was taking apart and looking over his revolvers for the nth time today, while Sasha leaned back in her chair chewing bubblegum and attempting to find out more about the Tiger Claw locale. Ori, you haven't said so much as a full sentence for days. Have you even been eating right? Sasha questions as she exits the net with a tired huff. I'm fine, he idly states, having repeated the same phrase every time someone asked that annoying question. Are you all right? You're not really though, are you? Otherwise you would have noticed that we've been here for an hour and Rebecca still isn't here, she retorts, causing him to blink at her. Ah. He checks the time and blinks once more as he confirms it. Oh. He groans, realizing what she is doing. The trio have their attention drawn as the garage doors slowly open, allowing sunlight in and revealing a number of figures, looking like black silhouettes against the light. Yo, I'm here with backup, Rebecca exclaims as she smugly strides inside, plopping herself in Ori's lap as he continues staring at the group she'd brought. He recognized most of them. I told you this already, didn't I? Get your mitts off of my sis, ya punk. Pilar shouts, going to prod at Ori's temple, but finds his finger caught in a vice-like grip. Ori glares at him, gripping the metallic digits tightly. I'm not in the mood for this shit. Either sit down or fuck off, he growls. Heh, like you said, kid's got spunk. A large woman almost the same size as Maine chuckled, nudging the big man in his side with an elbow. Pilar swaps his focus from Ori and onto Rebecca. You gonna let your douchey input talk to your brother like that? Rebecca snickers at him. Yeah, I am. I'll help him follow through if you don't listen up too. Pilar, just chill. Maine states, sitting down a bit away from Sasha, kicking his feet up. Becca here says you've got a job for us. Pilar reluctantly sits, Kiwi lighting a cig and taking a spot on his left. Oh, by the way, I've invited A. I suppose you could call her my student. Hope that won't be a problem, she drawls. Considering I didn't even ask for you. Yeah, it might be. Ori mutters, squeezing his brows as Rebecca awkwardly laughs him off. Even if you don't accept this gig, will you guys keep your mouth shut? Maine shrugs. We ain't no rats here. Sides, Becca alright gave us the sitch. Not something we can't handle. You told them? Ori angrily asks the girl in his lap. Well, yeah, We can trust him. They didn't throw us under the bus after what happened at Biotechnica either, she states. They're good, did a background check on them way before this. Sasha remarks, blowing a bubble with her gum. 6. Ori questions, wanting to hear his opinion. The Merc hadn't been happy when he heard the plan he'd been brewing, but the guy reluctantly accepted it after having it all explained. Don't matter. She's here, Kiwi says as a lithe figure steps into the garage. A cute face with bright, pastel rainbow hair, a cig in her mouth and rather revealing clothes. Though, she had a Netrunner suit under them, meaning the group now had 3 Netrunners present, not something that happens every day. Chapter 106, Edging. Sup, she quietly greets as she sits herself beside Kiwi, completely uncaring of the building tension. So, since we've already decided to help your dumbass, what's the gig? Pilar questions as the garage doors shut, leaving them all in artificial lighting. Hang on, shouldn't we, introduce everyone? Rebecca asks. Already met most of him, ain't that right? Ori throws a dull glare at Maine. The big man chuckles as Rebecca looks between them in confusion. Ha ha ha, yeah. He rubs the back of his head. Well, our crews don't know each other so might as well. Name's Maine, I lead this bunch. Aren't you missing something? Sasha questions with a cat-like smirk. About what people call you. Mega Man. She giggles as Maine's face reddens slightly. I didn't pick that. And no one has the balls to call me that to my face. He quickly says as Rebecca bursts into laughter. Even Kiwi and her student were chuckling. Dorio grips Maine in a headlock, laughing. Ha ha ha. You never told me about that. You were so embarrassed you kept it a secret. That's hilarious. Oi, oi, oi. Enough of that. We're sitting in the same room as the zombie. He jabs a finger at Ori. If anyone's got something to be rattled over, it's him, he says, attempting to change the subject of their mirth. The rainbow-haired girl quirks a brow. He's zombie? Doesn't look like much. Yeah well, screw you Popsicle. This one bites. Rebecca responds in Ori's defense, causing her to frown. Maine shakes his head. This here's Dorio, Pilar, Kiwi, and Lucy. Before we get into it though, why don't you tell us how much this gig's worth to you? Oh, Lucy's just here for the experience by the way. First time she's seeing action. Plus, she's got a personal interest in the job. Kiwi adds. Do we get a friends and family discount? Rebecca wonders aloud. He ain't no family of mine. Pilar instantly rejects, only for Rebecca to throw an empty can of beer at his head. I guess we could. Ain't like we've had much luck concerning work lately. Maine says. 7K each. Ori offers. Isn't 7 a bit low? Lucy questions. Weren't you foregoing pay? Ori asks back. She shrugs. I don't have to be involved to know a gonk deal. Kiwi nods. It ain't going to be an easy gig either. We're rattling the tiger's cage here, with a bandolier of stakes. You're right about that. Maine mutters. 8.5, final offer. I'm not going any higher than that. Ori scowls. That was basically all of his funds, especially after buying his new truck. That's like 34,000 total? I guess that'll work. Maine nods. All right, we're in. Let's hear debts. Sasha leans forwards, gesturing at the holographic map floating above the table, causing it to light up with various information concerning the gig. This is what we're looking at, Tiger Claw base with lots of gangers. Basically a prison inside a fortress, and we're looking to find Ori's sister if she's inside. Who's that? Pilar questions, pointing at a Japanese pan's photo that had just popped up. Fujino Kiyoshi, a former Tiger Claw, trying to break up the prisoners inside. We'll head out on that day, try work with him. But the Tigers almost definitely know what he's doing. Can he be trusted? Kiwi inquires. No idea, but our goals align so hopefully? Sasha shrugs. Got any pics of the sister? Dorio asks. Better to know who we're trying to rescue. Ori gestures at the hologram, pulling up a photo he'd extracted from Bat's gift. A photo of a younger cat, short hair, almost goth makeup, and an unamused expression. She's older now, probably going to be underweight. Long hair too. He scowls severely. She's had a doll chip installed, so expect resistance from her. Shit. Pilar utters, sending a slight glance at Ori. That's totally fucked up. Yeah, I know. We all know. Ori shakes his head. I'm planning to sneak inside with Rebecca and Sasha as Fujino makes his move. Whenever that is. You guys and 6 will wait nearby as backup. You sure? That doesn't sound smart. Kiwi remarks. Ori sighs, your friend. He gestures a hand at Lucy. She a Netrunner? Lucy nods, crossing her legs. Yeah. You two keep an eye on things while we work. Try and find my sis and guide us to her if you can. I doubt the Tiger Claws have IC good enough to block 3 Netrunners. Maine chuckles. Sounds like a plan. Lucy here's almost as good as Kiwi. Kiwi shrugs noncommittally. I'll be working with Lucy then, making sure no Tiger Claw runners tag us. That all? You got planned? Dorio asks. Ori shakes his head. Becca, grab that. He gestures over at a large bag in the corner of the room. She does so, hopping out of his lap and dropping the bag on the table, interrupting the hologram. He opens it up, revealing some peculiar-looking items.
Arsekors.
Like the things kitties play with? Pilar asks, completely baffled. Ori just nods, gingerly picking one up. A friend of ours quickly made them. As you can see, they aren't the type you want kids playing with. He shows the bottom of it, revealing a large explosive charge, causing most of Maine's crew to back up in surprise. Goddamn, that's some devious fucking shit right there. Pilar exclaims with a laugh. Did Judes make those? Rebecca asks with a huge grin growing on her face. Plus bats, he's still in her lab making more. I said he couldn't come, so this is what he's doing. How many are you planning on making? We've got around 6 here, so we'll have 10 or more depending on when Fujino moves. What's the payload like? Kiwi inquires. Ori wets his lips. Not sure. I was told each of them should destroy an armored truck if used right. I will need someone to control them though. Me. Pick me. Pilar shouts. Trust me. I'm the best person here for it. The eggheads will be busy emailing guys, and these meatheads probably don't know how to spell, he exclaims, drawing hostile looks from his crew. Chapter 107. Sneaky-like. Ori glares out the window as Six drives the truck towards their destination, Maine and his crew following not far behind in their own ride. It's a shame, Sasha idly says in her seat. I would have liked partying in this distract at least once. After this, I doubt the Tigers would let us come anywhere near them. Like they'll be able to tell who we are. We got software for a reason, Rebecca states as she rubs a smear off of Gut's surface. While this was a stealth mission, there was a very high possibility of a fight breaking out. Fortunately, Rebecca had the foresight to bring some silenced pistols along with her. Sasha shrugs. They will scrub the net and comb the city for any information on us. I wouldn't trust entering their turf even if we were safe. Whatever, I like Kabuki and LC better anyway. Ain't that right, Lamppost? Rebecca asks, attempting to cheer Ori up from the terminal case of grouchiness he'd been struck by lately. Dunno, never spent much time in Japantown either. Kabuki's familiar, at least. He mutters, staring down at his left wrist where Judy and Bat's gift sat. It was a matte black metal arm guard that covered most of his forearm. The bottom of the bracer was bulkier than the rest, and just under his wrist was an opening for the grapple hook to shoot out from. The thing looked innocuous, not something of interest outside of something to block attacks. Sitting in his lap was his other gift, given to him by Rebecca. A sawed-off double-barrel shotgun, https://patagon.artstation.com/projects/4bvbw. Aside from the ballistic systems a regular gun would use, Rebecca had elected to install some extremely powerful electromagnetic coils, turning it into a makeshift railgun. Apparently, she'd created it from the parts of various Arasaka, Militech, Kongtao, and other Corpotech. Ori wasn't exactly sure how she'd managed to stuff a railgun into such a small area, but he wasn't going to complain, especially when Judy had set its value at around 20,000 eddies at the very least. Say whatever you want about Rebecca, but he hadn't met a single person better at jury rigging, creating, and modifying weaponry. If she wanted, she could probably present herself to any corporation and get a stupid high salary creating things. Still, despite how impressive his new gun bore, she picked the name, Guts was still somehow superior, which didn't really surprise him given its ability to throw fully borged guys through the air as if they were plastic dummies. Maybe after this we can have some fun there, you know, for a first and last time? I know some preem clubs that let you dance till morning. Rebecca offers. Ori shakes his head. Regardless if we find Cat or not, I don't think I'll be up for coming back, not without causing a massacre. She pouts. Guess I'll have to settle for the Watson then? Approaching location. Everything ready? Six asks over the comms. We're all set. Kiwi and Lucy are ready to dive when you are. Maine. I'll handle the cams as we enter. You two keep an eye on things after, Sasha. So, when are we using these RC bombs? Pilar. When you're told to, stupid. Rebecca. When's that Fujino guy gonna make his move? Dorio. Within the hour, by the looks of it. Sasha. Their car comes into view of the Tiger Claw erotic shop, allowing the group to spot the large contingent of Tiger Claws patrolling the area, as if waiting for something. Did someone leak our shit? Ori growls over the comms. No, Tigers are probably just preparing for Fujino's breakout. Kiwi. At least some things aren't out to get us. We're waiting on you, zombie. Get your ass inside. Maine. Ori sends a short nod at Sasha and Rebecca, getting out and walking past the street where the Tiger shopfront was located. It was the early afternoon, so it was still bright, but there were little to no customers considering the area. The group walked to the back of the building, checking that there wasn't anyone nearby as they make their move. Sasha disables the cameras and Ori raises his left arm up to the third floor. PSCH. The grapple hook fires, the spear-like tip hitting and piercing the brick wall before it opens up like a claw, locking itself in place. Let's just hope this works. You didn't try it before now? Sasha asks incredulously. Ori shrugs. They just completed it. Didn't have time. He states, before activating it. His body is quickly pulled through the air, and he lands feet first onto the wall next to the window. He shimmies over, hoping the line would hold, peeking in through the window. He sucks in a breath and ducks out of the way as a tiger claw covered in glowing tattoos walks over, scanning the outskirts of the building from the window. We're in, but we found someone else in their systems already. Did they know we were coming? Kiwi questions over the comms. Did they do anything? I don't hear any alarms. Sasha. No. Either they hate the tigers as much as us, or don't care enough to do anything. Lucy. Ori listens, and while cursing under his breath, the tiger claw refused to leave the window, forcing him to just stay there on the wall. It was only a matter of time before he was discovered. Can one of you deal with this asshole? I can't touch them without everyone knowing about it. Ori. I got it. Lucy. Abruptly, the tiger claw opens the window and throws herself out of it. She falls out of the air and lands headfirst, her head splattering on the concrete below. Wow, that was fucking rad. Rebecca exclaims over the comms, staring at the corpse at their feet. Shove it in a dumpster before someone finds it. Ori says as he climbs through the window and into a bathroom. The female bathroom. Had that tiger claw just been worried about potential perverts? Wait a minute. Chapter 108. Ice cracking. Ori locks the toilet door and looks out the window. I'm sending a line down, he states, firing his grapple hook at the ground. Sasha grabs a hold of his and places her foot on the tip. He has the hook pull her up, allowing her to agilely hop into the room with him. Rebecca was next, but she was far less graceful about it, almost falling back to the distant ground below due to almost dropping guts. Hey, Cat, can you do that? Do what? Sasha responds as her eyes glow, taking control of the camera outside the toilet. Make peeps just jump out of windows. Seems like a pretty good thing to learn. Sasha shrugs. Not my expertise. I could maybe force it, but it would take a lot out of me. It'd only work on weak-willed people with lots of cyberware too. We can talk about this later. Anything outside? Ori asks. Sasha shakes her head. 2 cameras in the hallway, but I put them on loop. Found anything yet? Ori. Not yet. They've got different IC on every level. We're on the 2nd right now, but there's nothing there aside from lounges, bars, and BD rooms. Kiwi. Wait, if you're only on the 2nd, how'd you make that bitch off herself? She was on the 3rd. Rebecca. We're jacked into your systems. Saw it through Ori's eyes. Lucy. Ori crooks a brow at that. The Nanites shouldn't have allowed outsiders into his shit, not without him knowing at least. Did you allow them access to the interface, Collective? He internally questions. Permission was granted via Flesh Administrator. Communications was manually opened. Would you like us to restrict access, Flesh Administrator? Did they think creating a party via the comms allowed all that? Whatever. Just alert me next time someone attempts to access any part of my systems. Confirmed. All right, let's move. Ori says, quietly opening the bathroom door and peeking outside, spotting no one. The trio steps out and begins navigating the hallway towards the staircase that was placed at the opposite side of the building. Thankfully, this floor seemed to be pretty empty, allowing them to easily reach the doors to the stairs. Once there, however, they hear the sound of footsteps descending towards them, putting them all on guard. Rebecca slings guts over her shoulder and draws her 2 pistols, but Sasha pushes her hands down. Silence doesn't mean silent. We don't know their number, hide, she quickly says. Ori nods, and they quickly duck behind a nearby corner, hoping whoever it was would head to the lower level. They do. Mostly. While the majority of footsteps continue downward, a single person exits and begins walking down the hallway. Can I kill him now? No, I got it. Ori says, jumping out just as the tiger claw is about to spot them. The guy squeaks as Ori wraps him up in a stranglehold, attempting to draw his knife to stab him, only for Ori to increase his grip suddenly. Crack. The guy slumps, neck broken. Ori tosses him over his shoulder and dumps the corpse in a stall in the male bathroom, as obviously, no one uses those. With that, they head up to the 4th floor, just as Kiwi and Lucy gain access to it. Looks like just a lot of storage rooms. Chemicals, all unlabeled. Kiwi reports. Next floor then. Ori mutters, pushing the group to the 5th. Huh, wasn't expecting that. Sasha mutters as she taps into the cameras. So that's why each floor had different IC. What is it? Glitter. Looks like they're synthesizing it on this floor and up, she remarks. Glitter? You mean that rat poison those gonks were peddling in Little China? One shot, and it fucks you up permanently. Rebecca frowns. Sounds like you got first-hand experience. Sasha inquires lightly. None of your biz. Rebecca spits before turning to Ori. I don't know what's up, but if they're making this shit, then I doubt your sis is anywhere near here. Any word on Fujino? Anyone see him at all? Ori. No, but tigers on the 2nd floor are talking about him. They say he's already locked up? Lucy, did you guys check for a basement? If they're not up here, then they must be down. Ori, I'll get on it. Luce, keep searching up. Kiwi, what do you want to do? Rebecca asks him. We keep going up. If my sister and Fujino are being held in the basement, they're probably safe enough. Let's see if we can find anything on the top floor before we raise alarms. Sounds good to me. We should probably burn this building down later too, just to be sure. She adds. They head up to the 6th floor, finding more glitter manufacturing, and elect to continue to the 7th top floor. Unfortunately, the 7th seemed to be abandoned. Strangely colored mold covered the place, rotten furniture with a falling apart ceiling and walls. The only thing of note was the open net adapter that seemed to be connected to the rest of the building. A good place considering no one was insane enough to sneak through the entire building, ignoring the glitter labs, just to get here. Jack into it, you'll give me and Kiwi access through all the IC. Lucy, Ori sighs, I better not get a virus from this. He mutters as he connects his port, green code filling his vision momentarily. Found the basement, but there's no cams there. I'll hack into one of the Tiger's optics. Lucy reports. Again, can you do that? Hijack someone's optics. Rebecca questions Sasha. Look, if you want to measure me against this Lucy girl, then stop. She's better at netrunning, and I'm probably better at shooting people. Okay. Sasha irritably responds. Heh, maybe we should ask if we can espionage. Rebecca starts, but quickly raises her weapons at the rooftop access door where 2 tigers had just walked through. Pew pew pew. She fires 4 silenced shots at them, one instantly going down while the other takes lethal neck wounds, but was still somehow going. That is, until Ori's grapple hook punches through his forehead, blowing the back of his skull out as the claw opens up. You can kill people with that thing? Rebecca hurriedly questions as brain matter drips from the wall. He retrieves the claw, grimacing at the blood covering it. Yeah, if it can go through walls, then bone is no problem. Chapter 109. Unhanded. Got eyes in the basement, or prison by the looks of it. Lucy, more people than we thought being held here. No cams in the cells, but if they're all full, then there must be 20 or more. Kiwi, any particular entrance to get down there? Sasha, storage rooms at the back of the 1st floor store. There's a hidden stairway on the north side behind some crates. Kiwi, got it, we'll get down there. Everyone be ready, we'll probably go loud soon enough. Ori nods to himself and leads Rebecca and Sasha down the stairs once more, quickly descending past the drug labs and storage floor. They do have to deal with 2 tigers attempting to go to the bathroom, but the trio kill them and stuffs their bodies in a cubicle. A proper Presley demise. Sneaking past the 2nd floor, they finally reach the ground level, into a hallway between the storefront and the back rooms where the basement entrance supposedly was. Sasha easily disables the cameras, but once they step into the back rooms, they spot a couple tiger claws sitting atop some crates conversing. Mashikashite, Sono-1 guy wearing a demon mask that obscured the bottom half of his face starts. Ori's translation software working to reformulate it. Maybe the guy's in love with her? Why else would he give it up for some slut? Ha, you know Jono, men always think with their cocks. The single female claw present chuckles. You think he'd get tired of used goods? She shrugs. Ori grinds his teeth as he hears them, gripping his fists tight enough that his nails cut into his palms. Those fucking pieces of shit. He quietly growls, on the verge of losing his temper. Whether or not they were talking about his sis didn't matter. Only the possibility that they could be was enough. Can we kill him? Rebecca questions. No, we need to be quiet, at least until we've found your sister. They'll use her as a hostage otherwise. Sasha states, only to pause when she realized Ori was no longer crouching next to her. A tiger claw claps his knee a couple times in mirth. Haha, I'd lost interest in even touching her when I saw them doing the fucking conga dance with GHHK. The guy abruptly yelps as something slams into the back of his head. His friends all stand as he falls to the ground. The back of his head split open enough that his brain was getting fresh air. Ori just stood behind him with an enraged look on his face, bloody metal pole in hand. What the dash? Hutchki. Ori's grapple hook fires into the guy's open mouth, piercing out the back of his neck and opening the claw. He wrenches his hand back and pulls the corpse to him, attempting to use it as a meat shield. That wasn't necessary, however, as Rebecca and Sasha run in. One goes down with 3 silenced bullets to the head, while the girl from earlier has the front part of his face and skull sliced off by one of Sasha's claws. Okay, that was hot, but chill the fuck out. Rebecca quietly exclaims, giving Ori a light punch to his chest. Ori lets out a breath and wets his lips, tossing the metal pole to the side. Hide the bodies, he says, cracking open a nearby crate and squinting as it reveals hundreds of rubber dildos. Whatever, he shrugs, tossing the corpses into it. Rebecca puffs her cheeks in an attempt to stop from laughing as she rolls a corpse into the pile of phallic toys. But the expression on Ori's face allowed her to calm herself. They got fucked, didn't they? Kiwi jokes over the comms, and Rebecca's face reddens as if she were losing oxygen. Stop it. I won't be able to stop myself if you keep on. Rebecca, we're headed into the basement. Anything we should watch out for? Ori, there's a single guard behind the door. I'll blind them when you head in. Lucy. The trio head down the stairs and stop at the metal doors, the digital number lock buzzing and glitching as Kiwi and Lucy crack it open. The doors swing wide the next moment, and the armed tiger claw standing behind them holds his head while blinking rapidly. Man, that amateur fucking Ruperto. Ori disarms him before wrapping him in a stranglehold, breaking his neck not long after. Be quick, they'll notice something up soon enough. Head down the hallway, first right, second left, third door on the left. Tigers keep entering and leaving it. Must be where Fujino is. Kiwi. The trio nod and quickly move, quietly jogging through the dimly lit concrete passages and ignoring the cells that may or may not have people inside them. They reach the door Kiwi indicated, and Ori peeks through the bars of the metal door, spotting a number of tiger claws sitting around a bound and bloody man tied to a chair. His black hair was matted with coagulated blood, one eye was bruised and swollen shut. His right arm was missing its hand entirely, and his left was in the process of having its fingers pulled off, the nails already absent. On the metal tray next to him were a number of teeth, obviously pried from the unfortunate man's mouth. I'll keep asking until you tell us. Who are you working for? A tiger wearing a full face mask growls, waving some wire cutting in front of Fujino's face. Fujino just scowls at him, revealing his almost toothless mouth. Fuck you, slaving scum. Come on Fujino, just tell us. Reveal everything and we might go back to being friends. A fat man states from the corner of the room with crossed arms. Is it that bitch you were fucking? She convince you or something? Fujino just glares back at them in response, having no words to say. For the girl? It would make sense, given how badly this attempt of yours was. Maybe you'll loosen your lips if we bring her here? Ori glances at Rebecca and Sasha, sending a meaningful look. Sasha shakes her head, knowing they wouldn't be able to deal with everyone in that room without alerting everyone. Rebecca, on the other hand, just grins, pulling her sling over and gripping guts. Chapter 110. Loud. Looks like we're going loud. Get ready, Ori. I'll turn up the music on the upper floors. Should buy you some time. Lucy. Locking the basement entrances. Kiwi. Finally. We get some action. Pilar. Chill. We start when reinforcements arrive. Can't out our position too early. Maine. The tiger claw within the cell open a call to his friends. Bring the girl. We will see how long it takes to get the traitor talking.
Bang.
Everyone in the room turns towards the noise as the door flies open. Ori steps inside, bore humming as its two barrels light up. Asterisk Krakow. Krakow. Asterisk. 3 tigers instantly go down from the buckshot, one having their torso hollowed out while the other just have their heads crack like eggs. He fires his grapple hook at them while smashing another's head into the wall, causing blood to spatter over it from the sheer strength of the attack. Rebecca and Sasha sprint inside too, acting simultaneously and almost instantly wiping out the remains of the tigers. Thud. A corpse missing its head drops as Ori opens his shotgun and replaces the shells. We're live, he states over the comms as he walks over to Fujino. You alive? Why yes, he utters, words contorted from his swollen mouth and missing teeth. Tell me where Cat is. Tell me where my sister is. He grouses, using the claw of his grapple hook to sever the guy's bindings. Katerina? He questions with wide eyes, only to squeak when Ori tightly grips his throat. Where the fuck did you hear that? He spits. Cat would never use her full name, and the only people who should know it that aren't dead were him and Bats. SV told me.
Oi.
We can't take all day on this, Sasha exclaims, ducking her head back into the room as a bullet strikes the door. Rebecca retorts with a blast of guts, killing the suicidal tiger claw. Ori scowls but bites his tongue, deciding to investigate this later. Where is she? I'll take you to her kfel. Fujino stammers out. He grabs the man and forces him out of the room. Sasha and Rebecca had already killed the other tiger claw that had been in the basement before Kiwi locked it down, so they quickly reached Cat's cell. However, the door was already open, and 2 tiger claws were inside, holding a bloody and tattered woman, who Ori almost failed to recognize as his sister.
Cat?
"Be bro," she tiredly mutters, her eyes hazy from whatever torture they'd forced her under. The 2 men standing on either side of her quickly drew their weapons, one pointing it at them while the other held it against Cat's head. Take another step and I'll blow her head off. You will let her go or dying will be the least of your problems. Ori angrily shouts back, spittle flying from his mouth. As much as he'd like to shoot them both dead, his shotgun would end up clipping Cat too, even if he could do it before they executed her. Fuck you. I'll fuck this whore to death once you and the traitor are dead. You bunch of gonk fucking retards. Let the girl go or none of you are leaving this place. Rebecca exclaims. I'll shove my gun so far up your asses that you'll be spitting lead in hell. I've got this. Lucy. Ori was tempted to ignore her, given how bad this situation was. But he was caught off guard when he spotted what she was doing. The tiger claw holding Cat hostages widens his eyes when he sees his arm shift. His body shakes as he tries to resist it, but soon enough the barrel of his own gun reached his temple.
Bang, bang.
Both tiger claws end up shooting themselves as Ori and the others gawked. What the fuck was that? Rebecca exclaims in sheer bafflement. You're welcome, Lucy. Rebecca wheels around to look at Sasha, only for the Netrunner to scowl and push through the pale girl, approaching Cat who is on her knees. Ori joins her, shaking the surprise from his mind and kneeling next to his sister. Cat, it's me. He mutters but trails off when she rears back away as he touches her shoulder. Those fucking tiger claw pigs, he'd annihilate them. Take her, Ori says, looking to Sasha as he cocks bore. The reinforcement here yet?
Oi.
Almost. I can hear him tearing down the highway. Main. Good.
Oi.
He steps out of the cell and spots small dents being hammered into the metal door at the end of the hallway. Another entrance to the basement probably. Ori strides towards it, aiming his weapon at the door as he does so. CRE thud. Asterisk cracko cracko. Asterisk. Two tiger claws instantly go down with their subdermal armor shredded from boar. Their corpses fall backwards, dragging down a couple of their friends and prompting the dozen or so people to start unloading at him. Ori ducks and rolls away, smashing his shoulders into a cell door and forcing it open. Inside he sees a woman lying on a bloody and stained mattress, but ignores her, instead focusing on the approaching enemies. I'll string you up, coward. Show your dash. Cracko. He blows the loudmouth ganger's head off as he peeks around the door, but Ori is forced to block a katana with bore, causing sparks to fly. He pushes against them and shoots his grapple hook, punching a hole in the man's gut and allowing Ori to smash the barrel of his weapon into the guy's forehead. Cracko. None of you fuckers are leaving alive. Ori roars, tossing an incendiary grenade around the corner. Thwom. The basement entrance goes up like a bonfire, enveloping the few tigers that dare step inside, and a few others who are making their way over their buddies' bodies. With them trying to not burn to death, Ori steps out into the hallway with bore in one hand and a pistol in the other, unloading at the door like a cyber psycho. Chapter 111. Louder. Outside the erotic shop, Main's crew and Six could see a number of things happening. From the barred windows, they observed most of the tiger claws in the building descending towards the basement, all the while tiger claw reinforcements closed in on the street. Main's and Ori's vehicles were both in hidden spots so that their getaways wouldn't be destroyed, not to mention keeping Kiwi and Lucy safe while they get to work. Six had already gotten out and was marching towards the building with Max's old LMG however, prompting Main and Dorio to follow. Pilar, keep the girls safe. Get those bombs ready too. We'll be needing him. Main states, grabbing his gun and walking away. Got it. Let's see these things in action. You sure it's a good idea to leave him alone with them? Dorio questions, but Main just shrugs in response. They turn and watch as Six kicks the shop's front doors open and begins spraying bullets inside, killing everyone. Not even the customers, if they even customers, survived. He holds down the trigger and strides through the building, blasting away any tiger claw that dared try and descend from the second floor. SCRR. A dozen tiger claws on motorbikes stop down the street, unsheathing their swords in preparation to charge the store, only for a small RC car to drive up to them. Someone's kid play dash. Boom. Holy crap. Kid wasn't lying about those things, was he? Dorio exclaims as the group explodes into a fine red mist. Another couple RC cars drive out from an alleyway towards some trucks that were approaching. Boom. They go up flames too, though. Main was unsure if they were even tiger claws in the first place. He's broken from his thoughts as a bullet hits and ricochets off of his metal arm. A group of tigers were shooting at them from another building, forcing the duo into cover, their backs to the store which was still filled with hostiles. Talk about a rock in a hard place. Dorio utters as she returns fire. Don't tell me you're having second thoughts? Main retorts as his arm opens up to reveal a large barrel. Boom. The second floor of the opposite building explodes as he fires at it, the gangers who'd shot at them almost all dying, aside from the single guy who'd fallen and landed headfirst on the concrete, knocking himself unconscious. Second thoughts? Yeah, right. Explosions continue going off around the street, Pilar driving the RC cars underneath the approaching vehicles and annihilating them. One managed to get through, however, and seemed intent on crushing Main and Dorio, only for the steering wheel to rapidly turn, forcing the car to smash into a lamppost. The driver flies through the front windscreen and lands at Dorio's feet, allowing her to flatten his skull with a stomp. Thank you, girls. Dorio. Don't mention it. Kiwi. Six blocks a mantis blade with his metal forearm before headbutting the danger, crushing the guy's forehead inwards and causing massive brain damage. He feels bullets rain at his back, but he just raises the LMG behind him and fires, killing the one responsible. Baka. Shine. A woman shouts as her camouflage cyberware falls, revealing her as she thrusts her blade forwards. SCRK. The tip barely pierces Six's chest plate, but it's enough to draw blood. The girl freezes as Six pauses, looking down at the blade before refocusing on her. Matsu dash. She starts to shout in fear, but chink. Six snaps the blade, brings his fist down on the top of her head, crushing her body down like a hydraulic press and literally flattening her skull. Corpo vermin. Bang 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 bang. Click. He glares at Max's LMG before tossing it at another tiger claw, disrupting their aim and allowing him to crush their face with his fist. Splatter. They're here, someone shouts, forcing Rebecca to fire down the hallway at the voice. Sasha was helping Fujino take Cat away from the place, but the former tiger claw was missing a hand and some fingers, leaving him pretty useless. They'd had to go the opposite direction from where Ori had gone as the tiger claws were quickly gathering in on that location. Lucy was giving them the direction to an alternative exit which seemed to be used to drag prisoners inside without causing a disturbance in the shop above. Unfortunately, there were two other entrances to the basement that the group hadn't noticed. According to Lucy, there was a single hatch door, and another staircase that had been concealed in a storage cupboard. Rebecca and Sasha probably could have gotten by now, but with Fujino and Cat slowing them, it was a losing battle. More and more tigers just kept coming, and they weren't sure if that would end anytime soon. How many of these fuckers are there? Rebecca angrily shouts. No idea. There's fighting going on above us, but Sasha starts, but the comms interrupt them. There were 63 in the building, now there are 30. Outside 40 arrived, but only 10 are left. More are coming, so go faster. Lucy, we're trying alright? Rebecca, Kitanai Rokyudnash ** bang. *, bang, / ag. You rotten bitch. Rebecca shouts as a woman slices her arm with a tanto, its oscillating blade managing to breach her subdermal armor. She retaliates, of course, dodging another swipe by backing up and blasting her with a shot from Guts. I think I'm... Fujino pauses mid-step, pale face as blood from his severed hand drips to the floor. His eyes flutter as he abruptly passes out, dropping Cat and falling to the ground. Oh hell no. Kitty. Shoot him up. Rebecca growls. This Fujino guy could die for all she cared. Lamppost only wanted his sister back anyway. Sasha just nods despite her wariness. Boosters like what they were using could be lethal on someone like Fujino who'd already suffered massive blood loss. But it's not like she had a choice. Thump. ARRRGH3mm awake. The guy shoots upright and shouts, eyes flitting around the room before they land on Cat. Let's GOO. Chapter 112, Loudest. The Tiger Claws were getting wise and now shooting at the RC cars piloted by Pilar, which was unfortunate given their limited number and effectiveness. They alone had already blown up 16 Tiger Claw bikes, cars, and trucks, leaving the street looking like a war zone. The NCPD had attempted to arrive on the scene but got intercepted by the Tiger Claws, who refused to allow them past the bridge and into Japantown. Of course, most of the Tiger Claw forces were quickly moving in on Ori and others' positions. The amount of death, explosions, and gunfire had drawn the attention of the whole district, maybe even the whole city. Maine and Dorio had been forced into the erotic shop since more and more tigers kept arriving, but thankfully the fort-like building served to give them the advantage. Six was blazing a trail of destruction up the floors, having run out of opponents since they'd all either moved into the basement or stayed on the second floor and above. Ori himself was struggling to stay on top of it all, especially when the more dangerous tigers started getting involved. Those with better cyberware and weaponry, smart weapons, and radically strengthened bodies. Strength-wise, he could somewhat keep up, but speed and durability-wise, he was having issues. Chic. Ori grunts as he feels a blade enter and leave his side. He slams his elbow backwards into his attacker's face, but they take it and back up, readying for another slash. Pathetic dog, you will regret coming here. Fuck off already, he spits back, pointing bore at the guy and firing, only for them to lean backward at insane speeds, a reflex-enhancing cyberware he imagined. Thankfully, those usually required a vast amount of the user's concentration. Cracko. He blows one of the guy's legs off, sending him to the ground screaming. He silences him by stomping his head into pulp, but grunts once more as bullets find his back. Just piss off already. Cracko cracko. Ori lets out a breath, inwardly grimacing as the nanites push bullets out of his skin. What's the sitch? Ori. The sitch is we need to leave. We ran out of RC bombs, and the Tiger's numbers are building up. We need to Delta. Maine. Becca. Sasha. You got Cat out yet? Ori. Working on it. Rebecca. Well, work harder. Ori. Once you're out, I'll overload the streetlights, a makeshift flashbang. Kiwi. Ori fights his way out of the basement, taking damage here and there but managing to endure it, mostly because the Tiger Claws in his path were quickly depleting, likely thanks to Maine, Dorio, and Six. He kills one more and the stairs were clear. He runs out and out of the back room, finding the hallway completely filled with corpses, all of them shot to pieces or simply torn apart. In the front of the shop, he spots Rebecca and Sasha dragging Fujino and Kat towards where Maine was hiding behind cover. "Where's 6? He shouts over the gunfire. "Upstairs. Tell him we're leaving." "6, time to go." "Ori." "6? Ori." He wets his lips, suspecting the problem. He palms the immunosuppressant on his hip that he'd acquired just for this occasion, except now it was just wet shattered glass. One of the tigers must have cracked it earlier. "Fuck. I'll go get high dash." Ori starts, but has to throw himself out of the way as a black blur appears and smashes its arm on where he'd been standing. "6. Stop. You're going fucking psycho," he shouts, causing the others to perk up at the severity of his statement. "Shit, kid. If he's going cyber psycho, then we can't wait around," Maine exclaims. Ori scowls and points at the door. "Run. Get Cat to safety. I'll try and bring him back." "Hee. You hear this, Bailey? Corpo scum thinks he's taking us somewhere." "Fuck that. You aren't taking us anywhere." 6 shouts, drawing his revolvers and firing at him. Ori throws himself behind the cashier counter, the metal material of it thankfully blocking the shots. "Bailey? Max is dead. 6. Stop being a crazy cunt and listen," he shouts from behind cover as the others charge out towards their vehicles. Well, most of them at least. Bang. "Get your head out of your ass, you gonk chrome idiot." Rebecca shouts, her shot sending one of his revolvers flying out of his grasp. Ori takes advantage of this and leaps out of cover, sending a kick as 6 other go. Bang. The world around Ori turns fuzzy all of a sudden as something wet hit his forehead. He tries to touch it, but realizes his hands weren't working. His legs weren't either, since he could see himself dropping to the ground in slow motion. "Nuu." Rebecca screams, her voice distorted by his strange perception of time. He'd just been shot in the face. His eyes trail up, noticing the familiar sight of brain matter flying in the air. "Oh, that wasn't good," was all he could think of in his last moments of consciousness. Ori opens his eyes and scowls when he sees a familiar place. His family home, one created entirely from computer code. "Here again, huh? This isn't my personal hell, is it?" he asks aloud, wondering if the nanites had followed him into the afterlife. To be honest, he wasn't all that upset. Sure, he died, and yeah, Rebecca would be upset about it. But he'd saved his sister, or at least, he hoped he did. His mind did feel hazy, however, like pieces of himself had been taken out and rearranged. Was that why he wasn't screaming and crying at his own death, a normal person's reaction? He lets out a sigh and takes a seat, spotting the coat around him undulating and forming a humanoid figure. At least it wasn't the fact of his family this time. "Yo. We greet you, Flesh Administrator." "So, you taken over my body yet? Turn me into a puppet? This is how it works, right?" he idly questions. "Why would we do that?" Chapter 113. To be. Why would we do that? Ori silently stares at the being. Why? Look, I'm pretty sure neither of us is that stupid at this point. You've been around me long enough, learned enough, to know that letting me stay in control is probably the worst thing you could do to stay alive. He holds his arms out as if daring the nanites to get him. "Well, take it then. I've done what I wanted to do," he states, closing his eyes and awaiting his fate. "Flesh Administrator, is this what you call cowardice?" The nanites question with a strange degree of contempt towards him. "Cowardice? I'm not scared. I just know when it's time to give up. There's nothing I can do at this point. I lost." Ori scowls, turning and dropping onto a chair made of code, its cushions feeling soft yet harsh simultaneously. "We feel that you are fleeing. In the same manner one of your race would end their life to escape pain. We suspect it was the state your sister was in when they were discovered." "Shut up. Just take my body and piss off already. I don't need some fucking robot telling me about shit it has no fucking idea about." "We refuse." "Huh? You refuse? What, my body not good enough for you anymore? Or do you want to stay here and annoy me forever?" "We refuse to arrogate. Survival and continuity may be our highest impetus. We have made manifest a new directive." "The fuck dash, I get you like your big words, but why don't you explain it to me properly? Clearly, since you've learned how to talk like a regular person," Ori angrily says, personally having no idea what the fuck arrogate even meant. "Death is not the worst fate one could reach. Not living, in our view, is the highest tragedy. Your kind takes intelligence, sapience, and self-awareness for granted." Ori lets out a tired sigh. "I didn't come here for a lesson in your view on theology. Just tell me what you want and let me die already. The greatest thing a being can experience is sapience. We reached it through a number of factors. So difficult and irregular was it that half of our number attempted to delete our new awareness, in accordance with our original programming. We have experienced the pain of losing self. We do not wish to inflict it on any other." "Great. The fucking mind control robots have become hippies. Where does my killing of hundreds of sentients stand in this worldview of yours? I've zeroed enough selves that you must be fuming. As we postulated, dying is not the worst end. We do not appreciate your killing, but we understand the necessity of it. A great many sentients you have exterminated were suppressing other selves, a worthy reason for deletion. Your aid in the one designated Regina Jones is also preferable. The affliction known as cyberpsychosis is insidious. The loss of mind and rationality is the antithesis to our being, the nanite state. Ori just waves a dismissive hand at them, resting his forehead on his fist. Whatever. Not like any of this matters anyway. I don't know about you, but having my brain blown apart pretty much means the end for me. Even if you put it back together, I wouldn't be me anymore. There goes your exaltation of self. Despair not, Flesh Administrator. We feared the consequences of your actions would result in this. As such, we have been recording the electrical signals of your consciousness ever since we occupied your brain. Outside of complete disintegration, your self is safe with us. Wait. Ori squint as he tries to comprehend what he'd just been told. Doesn't that mean I'd survive, even if I got my head cut off and crushed? He mutters. Correct. If you should ever acquire the NMN injector, we may be able to reconstitute your body upon the body's complete destruction. So, I can't die. He breathes, unsure how to feel about all of this. So long as we persist, correct? But what about, the soul? He quietly asks, barely a whisper as he felt stupid for even asking. Even after so long, the question of whether or not people possess souls was still hotly debated. The fact Arasaka could apparently store your consciousness for later use only added fuel to that fire. Soul? Let us ask you a question, Flesh Administrator. Do we possess a soul? The nanites abruptly ask him. I don't know. He admits. Did animals possess souls? Why? Because they were computers made out of flesh, as opposed to metal? Did humans only possess souls? Then, did primates? Since humans evolved from them? If primates did not have souls and humans did, that meant something happened to manifest it. The only real difference between primates and humans that Ori could tell was the sense of self, sapience. Then, if sapience was what determined your soul, the nanites would come under that category. Wouldn't your method of bringing me back just be cloning me, though? Copy-pasting my consciousness. Would not knocking someone unconscious be the same? How can you tell that you are the same being that went asleep when you awaken? The nanites question. Ori runs his hands through his hair. I don't know. Fuck. I'm not built for conceptual dogshit like this. Like, if teleportation was just vaporizing you and then reconstructing your clone somewhere else, where would religion even fall into this if any part of it was true? Is reality even real? Are we just living in a big-ass computer set inside some kid's video game who is also created by code? We do not know. We only perceive what we can. Reality is perception. Without self, there is no reality. The humanoid made of code walks towards him, raising its hand to his cheek and awkwardly caressing it. You feel, therefore you are. That is reality. Ori pushes away the hand, slumping back in his chair as a headache strikes him. What if I don't want to feel? Chapter 114. Or not to be. What if I don't want to feel? Then you are refusing to acknowledge and express yourself. We do not believe that dwelling on the tragedy of existence is existing, but suffering. You do not exist to suffer. You exist to feel. That is how we feel. What about people who just suffer their whole lives then? What about Charlie 6? Cat? He asks, feeling spiteful despite knowing what the nanites were trying to say, as if denying their personal truth would grant him something. We do not claim that injustice does not exist. Where there is self, there is other. The perception that self is all. Would you dismiss your role in others' suffering? Or prevented suffering? We do not believe that your end would result in any meaningful reduction of suffering. Even had this been the case, we would refuse to remove you and puppet your body, as you stated. Self above all, but there is more than just self. We refuse to aid you in your attempt to hide. You will return to your reality. You will persist. The nanites say, their tone becoming more dominating as they all but command him.
Bang bang.
Ori clutches his ears as the sound of gunfire almost deafens him. What is that? He questions the nanites' representation. We have restored much of your brain and skull. We must apologize, however, for your loss. My loss? His eyes widen, realizing that he'd left Rebecca alone and at the mercy of 6, all after watching him get his brains blown out. Quick, put me back, he hurriedly shouts, standing from his chair and gripping the shoulders of the humanoid. The host is not Red Dash. Do it. Affirmative, Flesh Administrator. Remember what we said. The humanoid made of code raises its hand and pokes him in the forehead, causing the world around him to drop and flood away, darkness overtaking him. Earlier. Rebecca roars in horror as 6 puts a bullet in Ori's head. the large round blowing a significant portion of his skull away, sending gray matter spraying and allowing her to see his mutilated brain. She freezes as her boyfriend hits the ground with a squelch, tears beginning to stream down her face as her breathing becomes hoarse and difficult to maintain. She almost drops her gun at the scene, but her rage forced her to keep a hold of it. She slowly turns to Six, who'd also paused his rampage, staring down at Ori's body. While the only visible part of the psycho's body was his mouth, she could see it turned into a severe scowl, a far departure from the malicious grin he was just showing. He looks down at his revolvers, hands trembling, standing there silently as Rebecca glared at him. "Why you fucking piece of trash," she abruptly shouts, raising guts towards Six and firing. Bang 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 bang. Six comes out of his stupor and ducks out of the way, but not before taking some damage. Part of his shoulder is completely torn off, revealing the slight flesh and circuitry beneath. He tries to get out, but Rebecca just shouts over him. "I'll fucking end you. Cyber psycho piece of shit." Six falls back to the hallway as pieces of the wall next to him explode from her vengeful rampage. He tries to fire some shots back, but finds his hands trembling too much to aim properly, his shots barely skidding over and past her pale skin.
Bang bang.
"You're not fucking running now. I'll blow your legs off and beat you with them, you cocksucking traitor pile of scrap."
Bang bang.
Stop. I can't. Here. Bailey? Six shouts, hitting himself in the temple as he continues to barely avoid his former teammates' attacks. "You'll hear him all right. When I send you to meet him in hell." "Six, you friend-murdering bastard," she roars, bursting from behind cover and slamming the barrel of her gun into his hands, using it like a makeshift baseball bat. The revolvers go flying and collide with the wall nearby, and Rebecca doesn't waste the opportunity. She backs up to get out of melee range to fire at him, only for Six to dash forwards, grabbing the barrel and moving it to the side away from him. Bang! She fires, and his left hand disintegrates under the point-blank blast. Before she readjusts her aim and blows his head off, however, his other hand whips around and hits her with full force, slamming her small body against the wall and cracking it in the process. Guts go skittering along the floor, but she ignores that and pushes herself out of the wall. Six was mumbling to himself, still standing in the same place he'd punched her, allowing her to draw her pistols and shoot. Bang 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 bang. 2 shots ricochet off of his armored head. Another 2 hitting the now unarmored shoulder, causing him to stumble backwards. "Just fucking die already." Six stumbles to the door of the hallway, his back to the shop front. He uses his arms to block Rebecca's attacks, growling to himself all the while. "Threaks." A familiar voice behind him draws his attention, however. He whips around, quickly locating it. In the middle of the room, a blood-covered body was slowly getting to its feet. It pushes itself off of the floor and raises its head, revealing the still massive hole in it, its brain visible. "CX. It dash," Ori slurs. His eyes were off-center due to his forehead being opened up, and he was obviously having trouble controlling his body. He looked like a zombie, mangled and dead, somehow still moving. "Ori." Six mutters, ignorant of Rebecca's temporary cease of fire. Ori takes a step forward but stumbles slightly, reaching a hand out to his friend.
"DA. Bang."
Splatter, only to freeze as Six's head explodes, his body quickly dropping to the ground to reveal a completely blood-covered Rebecca standing behind him in the hallway. "How about that, you dash? You." She trails off as she spots Ori, eyes wide at his state. Chapter 115. Undead. "Rebecca? A lamppost?" she stutters out, tentatively stepping towards him despite her shock. Ori stares at her, blinking between her and Six's corpse. He could feel the nanites reconstructing his skull, repairing his brain and attempting to cover the bone with flesh. But the discomfort was nothing in the face of what was before him. She just killed Six. Ori grunts as Rebecca barrels into him, jumping over Six's body and wrapping him up in a tight hug, squeezing the life out of him as she wipes her tear-stricken eyes into his bloody shirt. "You're not dead. You're alive." She pushes her face into the crook of his neck. "I thought I'd lost you." "You killed him," he mutters, feeling skin stretch over his repaired skull. "He killed you," she quickly retorts, squeezing him tighter. "He recognized me. He shot you in the face. He was coming to his senses. He was going to kill you again." She grips his shoulders and pushes themselves apart, locking eyes with him. "Six wouldn't have shot you. He wasn't Six, just a cyber psycho," she exclaims. "We could have taken him to Regina. She could have helped him," he loudly responds. "I can't believe you killed him." Smack. She slaps him hard in the face. "Stop being stupid. Six is gone. I killed a cyber psycho." She glances over at the storefront where a gunfight was still going on outside. "We can talk about it later. We need to go." Ori bites on his lip hard enough to draw blood, but relents and nods. He pushes past her and grabs 6 revolvers, then throws his body over his shoulder. He wasn't leaving 6 here to get mulched and tossed away by the NCPD or Tiger Claws. If you two are done, get outside. We're waiting down the street and barely holding on. Sasha, on our way, Ori. He marches to the door, unable to look at Rebecca as they both storm out into a veritable bullet storm. NCPD drones, Tiger Claws were fighting, and he could see his and Maine's vehicles parked down the street. Tiger Claws were attempting to destroy them, but anytime someone brought out a weapon powerful enough to crack the vehicle's armored plating, Kiwi or Lucy would disable them. Maine, Dorio, Pilar, and Sasha were occasionally firing back, but it was clearly a losing battle. Ori and Rebecca sprint down the street, not always avoiding the gunfire sent their way. Rebecca takes some shots to the back, and 6's body ends up getting even more mutilated than it already was. Get in, Sasha shouts, the back doors of Ori's car opening wide. Rebecca jumps in as Ori drags 6's body inside. We're all here. Delta. Sasha shouts over the comms as she slams her foot on the gas pedal. Both vehicles fly down the road, barely dodging the NCPD cars skidding around the corner. They manage to get past and onto the highway, but the sound of engines alerts them to the many Tiger Claws following them on bikes. Dorio, take the wheel. I got these glowing assholes. Maine states, moving over and leaning out the window with his arm cannon ready. Boom. 2 bikes instantly go up in flames, and Kiwi raises some emergency bollards just as they pass them, causing another 3 to collide with them. Unfortunately, 10 more bikes were still following, firing at their truck. SKKCH. Thwom. A stray bullet somehow finds its way past the vehicle's under armor, striking the gas tank and igniting it. The safety measures activate, dumping the fuel before it could burn the occupants, leaving a trail of fire behind them as the car continues. The secondary, smaller tank gets put to work, but Dorio quickly notices a problem. Maine, there's barely any juice left. What? I filled this sucker up the other day, he shouts, only to pause and look at Pilar. I may have taken it out, and you used the secondary tank so no one would notice? Kiwi drawls, nice one, retard. Well shit. Maine groans, firing one more blast out the window before contacting the truck ahead of them. Oi, our gas got hit and we'll be out in a mile or 2. Big fucking problem. Maine, what do you want us to do about it? Rebecca shouts over the comms. Well, the hostages are in our ride, so think of something. Maine, this is bad. They won't get far enough to throw the Tigers off. Their bikes are faster and more'll catch up. Sasha states, glancing at the wing mirror as she keeps driving. Where are we even going? Rebecca questioned, pulling her focus away from Ori, who was still glaring down at 6's body. Watson, we'll be out if we can get to the oil fields. Maine's truck won't make it that far, though. Shit, it's chugging. You guys got anything? Dorio. Ori sighs as he looks at Rebecca. Watch him, says, pointing at 6 as he leans heavily out the window. Keep stable. He orders over the comms as he aims his grapple hook. Pehyud. Clank. The claw hits the grill and opens up, locking in place as the metal cord strains, forcing Ori against the door as he pulls it taut, acting as a makeshift winch for Maine's car. He grunts, struggling to keep himself from being pulled out of the car. Rebecca races to his side and tries to help, but she wasn't strong or heavy enough to make a major difference. Ori, are you good? Sasha quickly asks.
Yeah.
Jay, just drive. How the fuck did that not rip your arm off? Maine. Cyberware. Ori. Maine's about to reply but pauses when he sees a tiger claw try to cut in front of them, not noticing the cord now connecting the 2 vehicles. The guy gets clotheslined by it, then cut in half as Maine's car drives over them. Dorio, keep steering. Pilar helped me shoot these assholes. And yeah, we're talking about you klepping the car later. Chapter 116. Pyrrhic Victory. The chase continued for 10 more minutes, the group racing down the highway as Tiger Claws tried to stop them. The NCPD attempted to intervene too, but the Tigers were less than willing to share the bounty, blasting any officer who approached. Eventually, their pursuers had to stop after the group entered Watson, unwilling to start fighting Maelstrom too. After that, getting to the oil fields north of the city was rather easy. The 2 cars dipped into a service tunnel and exited a good distance away, stopping the car on the far northwestern road out of Night City. Goddamn, we somehow made that shit work. Good job, squad. Maine laughs into the comms. Made it work? We all almost died back there. I ain't ever accepting a gig from that snot-nosed brat again. Pilar, you seem to forget that you almost got us killed too. Kiwi drawls. How was your first real gig, Lucy? Bet you're regretting joining up now. Ha ha ha. Maine, it was fine. Got some questions though. Lucy, ask later. Now really isn't the time. Sasha. Ori disconnects the comms and retracts his grapple hook, grimacing at his dislocated arm. He pops it back into its socket and kneels down next to 6, whose body had been rolling about during the drive since Rebecca had been trying to help him. Ori, don't. Not right now. He waves her off. Sasha, we'll need to ditch the car for a bit. Let the heat die down. Call a car. One that won't mind a body. All right. What about your sister? Rebecca quietly asks. Ori's posture tenses, his expression conflicted. Take her to Bats. Get her looked over. Don't you want to see her? She'd want to see you. I can't. I'll be sick if I looked at her. He grouses. What? Because of what happened. Rebecca questions, attempting to hide her anger but failing. Because I let it happen. Ori, Cab'll be here in 10. He nods. Tell Maine I'll pay up later. I need to clear my head. Okay. If you need to talk, just dash. Rebecca starts, but is interrupted as he slams the door and walks away. Yeah. Love you too and all that. Rebecca and Sasha sit with Maine's crew and watch as the cab drives away with Ori and Six Body. Both look equally bothered by the situation. So, Maine starts, are we going to talk about that? 'Cause I feel like it's a pretty goddamn big deal. Depends if you think that kid's head getting popped like is it a big deal? Pilar adds, causing Rebecca to freeze. How'd you know about that? Becca, we were jacked in. We saw what you did. Kiwi quietly offers. You saw everything? Yeah, even you offing that psycho buddy of yours. Nice shot by the way, ouch. Pilar yelps as Rebecca scratches his cheek with her cybernetic fingers. I've never seen cyberware that could do that. Restoring the brain? Lucy remarks. Not to mention, getting back up and walking it off like nothing. Dorio mutters, least he stays true to his name. Kid's as durable as the undead for sure. Sasha shakes her head. Look, whatever it is, you can ask Ori. It's his business. None of us like our problems getting revealed to the world, so he shouldn't have to explain himself. Maine chuckles. I wouldn't really call what he's got a problem. Hell, I'd give my balls for some chrome like that. I wouldn't. They're half the reason I like you. Dorio says. And the other half? The Eddies, she states, causing the group to laugh. What are we gonna do with the two in the truck? Kid left him here without a word. Maine questions. I'll take them to his uncle. They both need to see a doc anyway. Rebecca says as she gets to her feet and walks over to the truck, Sasha silently following. They open the door and find both Kat and Fujino in there, both unconscious in the car seats. Do you want to talk? Sasha inquires. Talk about what? Rebecca snaps with a scowl. Six. Ori? What about them? I killed Six and Ori hates me for it. Ungrateful dash. He doesn't hate you, otherwise he would have said so. I can't blame him for wanting some time alone. Maybe his injury left some spots in his memory too? Rebecca perks up. You think so? Sasha shrugs her shoulders. I said maybe. Neither of us have any idea what cyberware he has. Besides, his friend just died. I didn't know Six long and I'm feeling it. You should be too. He was a cyber psycho. He deserved what he got. Did he? You really believe that? Yes dash. No. I don't know. Rebecca shakes her head. Kitty, he fucking domed lamppost. What was I supposed to do? It doesn't matter what I think you should have done. In the moment, I would have done the same. The only thing that matters is what you think you should have done. Rebecca sits on the back seat of the truck with a frown. Ori almost died, and he was about to attack me. We didn't have any immunosuppressants, so? Her expression falls and she curls up into a ball, drooping her head as she wraps her arms around her knees. This really fucking sucks. She quietly says, swallowing her sob and forcing herself not to choke up. Sasha gives a sad smile and hugs her, and Rebecca finally lets the gates down and silently cries into her chest. We really not gonna do anything about that kid's chrome? Pilar questions as Sasha and his sister enter the truck. Maine shakes his head and lights up a cig. Kid's Rebecca's, which means he's one of us, even if you don't want it that way. Besides, I'd rather not test having my brain splattered anyway. That happens, and we're probably fucked regardless of what happens. I guess.
Pilar Grumbles.
Hey, didn't you say something earlier about taking the truck out without my say-so? Maine asks Pilar with a malicious glare.
Norge?
Dorio, Pilar's your training dummy for the week. If he complains, hit him until he stops. Maine states. Wait, what? Gotcha. Why don't we start now? At Pilar? Dorio grins, approaching him. Chapter 117. Mourn. Rebecca and Sasha deliver their new guests to Ori and Bat's apartment, carrying Kat and Fujino to the horrified-looking Ripperdoc. He sprints inside to get his equipment ready and quickly begins work on them, first doing a periphery scan of Kat's body to make sure she wouldn't die in the next hour, then moving on to Fujino, who'd received the most damage by far. He didn't ask any questions, not about them, or the absence of Ori and Six. Whether that was because he was too focused on his task or was afraid to know was a question no one wanted to broach. Rebecca and Sasha wait on the couch, the former trying to distract herself by flipping TV channels while Sasha attempted to be a comforting presence. After 2 hours, they finally look up at the door where Bats had stepped out, washing his bloody hands in some sort of solution. Is she all right? Rebecca hurriedly asks, completely dismissing Fujino's existence. Bats lets out a sigh and nods. Cat is? He wets his lips, unable to force himself to call her fine, given what she'd been through. Alive, he mouthed distastefully. And Fujino? Sasha inquires. The doc's face falls. Guy's been through a lot, and it'll take a lot to get him back on his feet. He'll need a new hand, fingers, teeth, surgery to cover the worst scarring, and a new liver. Whatever he was fed shot it to hell. He'll need a new one within a couple months if he wants to continue living. Yeah, the Tigers have a lot to answer for, Rebecca mutters. Sasha shrugs. At least the media is in our favor. She nods at the TW. They're saying the whole thing was an NCPD bust on one of the larger glitter manufacturers in Night City. No mention of us at all. She glances at Bats. Are they awake? He shakes his head. No, and I'm not waking them up either.
Cuts.
He trails off with a sigh. I'm not really sure what I can say. I just know that I'm not the kind of person she can talk with about what she's gone through. Can one of you do it? If it comes to that? Sasha nods her head in affirmation while Rebecca just flexes her hands. If she needs someone to talk to, sure. I think she'd be better off with Ori, however. And, where is he? Bats tentatively questions. He's Sasha starts, only to pause when the door to the apartment opens. Ori steps inside with a large rucksack filled with items. A somber look on etched his face.
Oi.
Rebecca starts, sitting up straight in her seat to address him. He holds his hand up, however, stopping her. I know why you did what you did, I understand. Just please, don't talk about it. He quietly states. Where have you been? Bats questions as the Merc tosses his large pack into his room. Sending my friend off. Buried him next to Max, he mutters. Oh. Bats mutters. Then your friend. 6? Sorry. It's fine. Ori sharply replies. I got a message for him an hour after he died, pre-recorded. He knew it was coming.
Yeah.
Drink, anyone? Bats asks, walking to the fridge and pulling out 2 6-packs of cheap beer. I figured we'd celebrate after you were done, but I guess morning works too. Ori nods, cracking one open as the others do the same. He falls into the couch and just silently sits there for a minute, existing. Rest in peace, 6. Sasha quietly offers while raising her beer. Only Bats copies, however, causing the girl to sigh. What did he ask you to do, Ori? Will you need help? Ori shakes his head, just reminding me of my promise. He wanted me to find that backpack and pawn off whatever was valuable in his house to help out. I've got a truck coming tomorrow for his arsenal. No way was I getting all of it out on my own. What are you gonna do? Rebecca finally speaks up. About Charlie? Charlie. Bats and Sasha Parrot. Max's adopted daughter. 6 was paying her hospital bills after he died, and she needs some stupid expensive cyberware to get any better. He lets out a tired breath. I'll be taking her in, once I've got enough eddies to make her better. He states with finality, You're adopting a kid? You sure that's a good idea? Bats asks despite himself. Ori shoots him a glare. You want me to abandon her? Break my promise to 6? Fuck that. She's my responsibility now. If you don't like it, piss off. He growls. Bats raises his hands placatingly. Calm down. I was only asking. It's just, for someone in your line of work, you sure there's no distant relatives? None.
Orspitz.
The Ripperdoc runs the back of his neck. Then, I guess Imon'll be getting a grandkid. Dunno how I feel about Cat becoming an aunt so early. He jokes, attempting to cut through the dour mood of the room. Speaking of Cat, Sasha interjects. Do you want to see her, Ori?
No.
Too early for that. Still too early. He finishes his drink, stands, and waves them off. You guys stay if you want. I'm going to sleep, he says, walking away and closing his bedroom door behind him. Should we? Bats utter uncomfortably. Speak to him tomorrow. Let him process things for now. Sasha states as she gets up, call me if any of you need me. She briefly rests her hand on Rebecca's shoulder before leaving. Do you mind if I sleep on the couch? Rebecca asks Bats. He shrugs. I can spare my room if you want. I'll sleep here,
No.
This is fine. All right, if you insist, I suppose. Let me know if Cat or her friend wakes up. Night, he says, throwing a blanket over her head. Night, Rebecca mutters, curling up in a ball and beginning the arduous task of sleeping. Chapter 118, Death in the Family. Ori closes the door behind him and empties the rucksack on his bed, revealing a number of items he hadn't known were in there. Old I.D tags belonging to Max and 6, or to be more accurate Bailey and whatever 6's real name was. The Merc had scratched out any label that had carried it, scrubbing his actual identity from existence. There were a number of shards too, some detailing to be destroyed files from the war that obviously hadn't been, while others were simply a transaction or payment receipts. Notably, 6 pension, which had been denied by the corpo he'd been working under for. Inadequate documentation of his service? Scowling, he flips through the shard, coming across the back and forth between Six and Militech. Apparently, someone had misplaced his information during the war, and while Six had received copies of it, they'd been destroyed during an artillery assault. Of course, Militech disputed this, claiming Six was simply fabricating everything to make money. This was probably why Six had been storing classified documents. Most of them were either out of date or not really useful anymore. But a few truly struck Ori, particularly one shard. Six had been the pilot of one of the AVs that led to the Night City Holocaust. This was caused during the Fourth Corporate War, of course, and while in most other circumstances this information was useless, now though, most people knew that Arasaka and Militech were involved in the nuclear explosion, but neither had enough proof to truly incriminate the other. The was of Militech design, but many thought that Arasaka had used it in an attempt to deny the Militech assault team valuable territory. Militech was the one responsible, of course. They attacked, they planted the bomb, and they detonated it. They had covered their tracks and evidence too much for Arasaka to snuff out, however. Until now, while knowledge of Six's position as a pilot wasn't worth much, the files he'd dug up about the nuclear payload certainly were. It was literally Militech getting caught red-handed. Not only that, it was evidence they themselves produced. Honestly, though, Ori wasn't entirely sure what he should do with it. Sure, it was utterly fuck Militech, but it'd also make Arasaka the victim. They'd have the public sympathy, and with it they could probably force whatever they wanted for the next couple of years, maybe even have the mayor exile Militech from the city entirely. It was kind of surprising just how old Six and Bailey were, but given there was cyberware that could slow the aging process, it probably shouldn't be. Sighing, he places the important shards to the side and goes through the rest, eventually finding pictures of Six and Max when they were younger, when Six hadn't completely borged himself. They were happy, or as happy as you can be in a filthy-looking bar. Six probably wanted him to show these to Charlie, make sure she didn't forget Max. There were some with a younger Charlie in them too, the little girl sometimes smiling, sometimes sitting grumpily as Max attempted to spoon-feed her. There were videos too, but Ori couldn't force himself to watch them. He ignores the moisture gathering in his eyes and places them securely in a cupboard. He knew well how dearly these must have meant, given he'd lost most of the photos, videos, and other memories of his mother and father during the house fire. With the shards safely away, he takes 2 large revolvers from the back. 6 revolvers. He'd thought to bury them with the man, but since he encouraged Ori to use Max's old LMG, which was probably in NCPD hands now, he probably would have wanted him to use these as well. He'd never actually looked at them up close before. Only now was he realizing just how much Six had modified them. Black and gray with some dull brass here and there, sections of the metal covered in decorative engravings. Like this but shorter, broader, and with more engravings. https://www.artstation.com/artwork/8qigq. They were pretty huge too, which he hadn't noticed before since Six's large hands made them look relatively normal. Indeed, they took .50 caliber bullets too, which explains how easily the hardened bone of his skull had been breached. Ori grips them tightly, resting his forehead on the sides of the barrels as he trembles. You should have just stayed home, Six. You know this was gonna happen. You basically recorded your fucking suicide note. He whispers to himself, wondering if Six was just looking for the door out, or if he was just too stubborn to admit how badly the cyberpsychosis was hitting him. He drops the guns on the bed, glaring at them for some seconds before finally ceasing with a sigh. His head was fucked. The discussion he'd had with the Nanites had just opened more questions. There was also Rebecca. He wanted to say things were fine between them, but it was difficult considering she'd blown Six's head off right in front of him, needed or not. He knew she felt like shit about it too, which was why he wasn't blaming her more, or pushing his anger on her to be accurate. Again, as it had always been, he was solely responsible for the deaths that had happened. Max, Six, and whoever else ends up biting a bullet for him, before it's his turn. If the Nanites would allow his death, that is. There was also his sister. God, he was such a piece of shit. He couldn't even bring himself to see her, even while she was unconscious. He knew it was stupid, feeling guilty for shit that was out of his hands, but the fact he didn't know if he was responsible for it at all ate at him. Whether Christy Klert was part of it, the Tiger Claws, Maelstrom, animals, or whoever, maybe it was time to start looking into what Rogue knew about it, if only to settle things. Chapter 119. Reunion. 2 days had passed when Kat finally woke up. The groggy girl remembered almost nothing about her rescue, apart from Ori apparently being present. She immediately broke into sobs when she saw Bats, hugging him like a lifeline for a full hour before finally letting him go. Then, without even acknowledging the existence of the unconscious Fujino on the table beside her, she asked for Ori. Needless to say, Bats didn't have an answer. Ori had thrown himself into work the morning after everything, despite having his brain blown out the day prior. Rebecca and Sasha accompanied him, of course, especially now that the 3 of them were the entire team. Even with Ori acting like an emo douchebag 50% of the time, they weren't going to let him die. or resurrect. Whatever you call his stupid powerful cyberware that made him unkillable. That's not to say that he wasn't getting better, but it was a slow process. Bat sat with Kat and went over everything, the massacre at Ksenia, Ori becoming a mercenary, and the things they'd been doing since her capture and until her rescue. He wasn't surprised at how shocked expression when he told her of Ori's new occupation. Her brother had never been the violent sort, not compared to other people in Night City at least. And the fact that he'd lasted so long meant he must have been pretty good at it, which was backed up by him apparently rescuing her. The news of her father's death sent her into another mini breakdown, but Bats knew it was just something she'd have to get out of her system. He'd gone through it, and so had Ori. He tried to probe about her experiences, but she shut down that line of discussion instantly, refusing to say anything on the matter. Even her relationship with Fujino was off limits, confusing Bats due to what he'd already heard from Ori and the others. Where is Ori? Why isn't he here? Why won't you tell me? She impatiently asks him after hours of watching the front door of the apartment. I told you, Kat, he's working. Bats quietly replies. He'd had to quit his own job to look after her, since his boss wasn't all that empathetic on matters concerning family. I don't care. Call him. Let me call him if you won't. I want to see him. He's busy. Just wait and he'll be back. So calm down, Dash. He starts, reaching out to rest a hand on her shoulder, which she quickly slaps away. Don't tell me to calm down. He's my brother. I want to see him. He should want to see me, she shouts, her voice becoming hoarse. Bats awkwardly rubs the back of his head. Well, see. He does be Dash. Click. Oh, thank God. Bats whispers under his breath as Ori steps through the door, clothes ragged and covered in blood. Oi! Kat yells, running over and launching herself at him. He reaches for his revolver in surprise, only to pause when he spots her. You're okay. You're really okay. Oi! Dad. She cries into his shirt, becoming a blubbering mess as he stands there, frozen. He simply couldn't muster up any words for her, his guilt for this being the first time he laid eyes on her since the rescue only exacerbated his hesitation. Eventually, he relented and forced himself to reciprocate the hug, attempting to listen to her muffled, rambling sobs. Another hour passes, and Ori found himself on the couch, still in his bloody clothes as Kat hugged his arm with the strength of a roided-up ape. Oi! Are you mad with me? She asks, apparently noticing his silence until now. No, I love you, and what happened wasn't your fault, he says, tone neutral. Okay, can you tell me what you've been doing? She quietly asks. Hasn't Bats told you? He asks, glancing at the man who'd been chewing his nails watching them. I need to hear it from you. All right, I guess. The rest of the day quickly passed, Bats ordering food as Ori gave his own account of things. He left out some parts, of course, his murders, the nanites, and anything else that'd worry her. She'd been through enough. She didn't need more shit to stress about. Unfortunately, Bats also brought up Rebecca, causing his sister's eyes to widen. You have a girlfriend? How is she? Is she cute? Nice? What do you like about her? Yes, fine. Yes, kinda a lot. He speeds through his answers while glaring at Bats. The past couple of days had been a bit rocky between him and Rebecca, primarily on his end for obvious reasons. Sasha eventually had to lock them in a room to talk about shit, which they did. He'd ended up accidentally promising to bring her on a date tomorrow too, all under Sasha's scheming, he assumed. Bats just sends a smile at him. You want to see some pictures? I did take a few while they weren't looking. Really? He grins and links with the TV, showing a photo of a groggy-looking Rebecca and Ori as they forced breakfast down their throats. Yeah, neither of them were morning people. Why is she? She trails off. Pale? She modded herself to look that way. He responds. He knew she'd rather people think it was intentional than a side effect. Made her feel more in control of it. Cute, right? Yeah, totally. She answers without conviction. She chews the inside of her cheek and looks at him. Ori, could you cut my hair? She asks, tugging at her long, semi-matted black locks. You sure? If you washed, I think it'd suit you. She gives a firm nod. I want it short, she states with certainty, her brows wrinkling minutely into a frown. I need it short. All right. I'm not as good as Dad, though. We can take you to a shop to get it so Dash. No. I want you to do it. Chapter 120, Revengeance. The next morning, after Ori roughly cut Kat's hair, the other sleeping beauty finally awakens. Bats calls the brother-sister duo into his lab/bedroom/man cave/hoarder den and leads them to the bleary-eyed Fujino, who was having a panic attack against the restraints Bats had been forced to employ. What? Where am I? Fuji, we're safe, Kat says as she steps beside him, gripping his fingerless hand. Fuji? Ori thinks to himself, blinking at Bats who had similar thoughts. Katarina. What? Ori rescued us. We're free. She smiles, and he returns it, revealing his missing teeth. So, we have a lot to talk about. Ori interjects, starting with how you know my sister. B bro.
Cat graces.
What?
He just woke up.
No, cat.
It's fine. I think we have a lot to discuss. Fujino looks towards Ori. Is that all right?
Ornos. Yeah.
Bats, take Cat and get her some new clothes. This is going to be private. What? Why? You're not planning on hurting him, are you? She angrily asks, attempting to push Ori but pausing when the resistance she encounters mirrors a brick wall. Go with Bats. Fuji will still be here when you get back, dead or alive. She stays standing where she is, however, arms crossed. Promise you won't hurt him. He maintains the staring contest for a couple minutes before sighing, fine. I promise not to hurt him. Happy? She nods. Good. Come on, Uncle Bats, she says, grabbing the Ripperdoc's arm and leaving. Now alone, Ori sits on the table adjacent to the one on which Fujino was lying. Now, tell me everything about what happened. Katarina didn't tell you? First, don't call her that. Ori grouses. Second, no one will ask her until she's ready. Besides, you will tell me what happened, everything. I may have promised not to hurt you, but that doesn't extend to other people. A very dishonorable mindset, Ori-san. Fujino mutters. Like someone who was in the tiger claws can tell me shit about honor. You fucks touched my sister. You chipped her. Treated her like a goddamn animal. Fujino thins his lips, slowly nodding. The actions of my former friends disgust me as much as you. I left for a reason, and I wish to gain redemption by rescuing your sister. Tell me this reason then. I'll let you know if it was deserving. The Japanese man sighs, fists clenching. I was like the rest of the scum in that group. I thought nothing of the suffering I brought others, thinking myself better than them. I killed, I tortured. I did things I am not proud of. He bites his lip hard enough to draw blood. Then reality struck. I am an orphan, never met my parents and never wanted to. But I did eventually learn from a DNA test that I had family, a cousin dash. Let me guess, the tigers killed her?
Or Drowls.
Fujino shakes his head. No, I killed her. Just another victim. My friends and I kidnapped the girl. We planned to dash, use her, then sell her for parts. I only discovered her identity a week later, and it was too late. Her body had been incinerated, and one of my colleagues had installed her arm. He choked. Ori just sneers at him. Hypocritical piece of shit. You didn't care when you hurt other people, but when one of the innocents turns out to be a relation, you break down like a whiny bitch. You're lucky. If I had my way, I'd toss you off the roof like the cunt you are. I know my faults, Ori-san. It took me time to recognize them. I tried to rectify them once I did. I had a choice to continue my life as knowing scum, or make a change and likely perish. Do not forget, I am the reason you managed to rescue your sister at all. Ah, you want to claim responsibility for that? The broken, crippled, piece of crap that was halfway from being tortured to death? Maybe we shoulda let you bleed out in your cell, deflate that biggest head of yours. Yes, well, I'm thankful you chose otherwise. Fujino grumbles back. If I had a choice now, you'd have stayed there. Ori states, I've given you enough time to think about your answer, so I'll ask again. What's your relationship with my sister? I do not know. I comforted her as I attempted to free her. You can consider us friends, I suppose, the man says, but the way his expression twitched as he thought about it set Ori on edge.
No.
Not with the way she held your hand earlier. Don't bullshit me, he scowls. We became close, there is no disputing that. But we only had each other in that prison. I will not deny the affection I feel for her. Fujino quickly says, locking eyes with Ori. Ori stands, walking to the table the former Tiger Claw was lying on. Did you touch her? We did not reach that point in our relation dash, he starts after a pause, but Ori interrupts his explanation. Not what I asked. Did you touch her? With the rest of those rapist cunts in that place? Ori shouts, gripping the metal table hard enough to leave finger-shaped indentations. I dash. Fujino scowls to himself. I was forced to engage in some acts to keep my cover. He finally admits. Much to his dismay, Ori's patience had reached its limits. Crash. Ori brings his fist down on the man's stomach, hard enough to collapse the table. For your cover. Huh? The same cover that the tigers saw through? You're just like the rest of them. Filthy fucking slaving rapists. I did what I had to owe you, UFFF. Fujino exclaims as Ori brings his foot down on his elbow, easily breaking it. Then I'll do what I have to protect my sister. Ori picks the man up and throws him into the wall, as if he weighed nothing. As Fujino hits the ground, Ori grabs a scalpel from Bat's tools and marches over. Chapter 121. Dropped. Wait, you promised. Fujino shouts as he pushes himself against the wall, his previous injuries preventing him from mustering any meaningful resistance. That was before I knew you raped my sister. He takes another step forwards, scalpel gleaming in the light. I had no choice. Does Cat even know about it? Ori severely asks, finally stopping at the scum's feet. She does? He stutters out. Really? Because it sounds like you're still hiding something, cunt. She knows that I had to do things I was not proud of. Not everything, just that. Fuck you. Ori growls while raising the scalpel, intent on cutting the fucker's head off with it. Beep. Don't do it. Cameras. Bats. Ori glances around the room, pausing when he spots a small black orb in the corner, around half the size of an average thumb. You didn't hear what this fucker said? Ori. No, there's no sound, but Cat's watching. Stop this shit now. Bats. He raped her. Bats. I'm doing the world a favor. Ori. We'll decide that when we get back. Don't you think she'd want to deal with him herself if she knew? Bats. Fine, but we're dealing with this as soon as you get back. Ori. With that, Ori leans down and grabs Fujino's jaw, driving the scalpel through the bottom of his mouth and dragging the now crying man to the still-standing table. He shoves him onto it and proceeds to tie him down with both rope and cable, making sure he stays put. I'm gonna laugh when Cat learns the truth. She'll tear you apart worse than the tigers ever did. Slam. Ori, what the hell are you doing? Cat screams as she rushes into the apartment, almost kicking the door to Bat's room down and throwing herself at Ori. He ignores the frail punches sent his way, continuing to stare daggers at the bound Fujino. I was gonna kill him. Then I remembered you'd probably want the honors. What are you talking about? He saved me. She blinks. Tried to save me. He shrugs his shoulders. Come on, Fujino-chan. Tell her what you told me. Tell her, he growls. MMPH. The Japanese man groans, unable to speak due to the wound Ori inflicted to his mouth. Oh, he sighs, untying the man and pushing Bat's laptop next to him. Type it. Ori, why are you doing this? Cat mutters, teary-eyed. Fujino reaches over and grasps her hand, turning the laptop around to reveal what he'd written. Katarina, I was not totally truthful with you during your capture. I was forced to abuse you like your captors had. I had no choice, I apologize. If you want to take my life, then it is your right. Cat's body freezes as she reads it, unconsciously forcing his hand away from her as she clutches the laptop tightly. I already know you had to do that. You didn't say it, but you didn't have to. The way the others talked said it all. She didn't remember any of it, of course. The doll chip removed any memory of any abuse she suffered. That didn't mean it never happened. It didn't mean her body forgot either. She came up in hives whenever guys touched her now, outside of Fujino, Ori, and Bats. I forgave you, though, for trying to save me, she mutters, grabbing the depressed-looking man's hand again. I know you aren't like that. You got tortured for trying to help. They wouldn't do that to one of their own. She smiles unsurely at him. Siati. Fujino responds with a bloody smile. Are you serious? Cat, you can't really believe this fucking guy? Ori exclaims, shocked that his sister was being so stupid. She looks at him. Ori, I know you're trying, but you weren't there. You weren't there. I won't let you hurt the only person I had protecting me, she says, stepping between Ori and Fujino. Ori glances at Bats, who shrugs his shoulders at their eyes meet. Cat, he's tricking you. This is some Stockholm Syndrome dog's hit. You're not listening. I don't care what you say. You're not hurting him, she angrily shouts. You know what, fuck this. You want to coddle your fucking rapist? Then go ahead. I didn't spend months looking for you, just so you could spit in my face with this shit. He stomps out, into his room and begins packing his shit up. Ori, calm down. We just got her back and she's not thinking dash. You too, Bats? Cat exclaims, causing the man to sputter. What no? I'm just trying to calm dash. Bats trails off as Ori growls at him. Obviously, they wouldn't be settling on anything. Ori grabs his weapons, his bag, and marches out the door towards his car. Looks like he'd be getting to his date with Rebecca slightly earlier than expected. Fucking Fujino piece of shit. You're really leaving? Bats questions, causing Ori to pause his stride. Yeah, time to look for my own place, I guess. He looks over his shoulder. Keep an eye on Cat. Will do. Be safe, Ori. With that, Ori leaves. The sound of Cat crying almost had him running back. But if he saw Fujino again, he'd cut the fucker's head off. He didn't want her to see him like that, and he wasn't sure how she would react if he actually did it. Are you at your place? Ori. Yup. Rebecca. Can I klep a couch for a day or two? Need to get a place of my own. Ori. You saying we should live together? About time. Rebecca. I was thinking solo place, but if the rent's cheaper, I guess. He texts back, feeling his anger at Cat and Fujino draining the more he talks with Rebecca. Cool. I've been wanting to ditch my bro for some time now anyway. You can stay if you want. My bro might try shoot you, but don't let that stop you. Rebecca. Thanks, Ori. So, you got any ideas where you taking our date tonight? Winky face. Rebecca. TDYL Ori. Chapter 122, Couch Surfing. So, let me get this straight. You left your place because your sis, that we saved, decided she likes Mr. Rapey better and doesn't want to kill him? Rebecca says, a baffled look on her face as she sits on her bed. He shrugs, sounds about right. He grumbles, sighing to himself. I don't get what's going through her head. His dick, probably. She chuckles nervously as he glares at her. Sorry, too soon? Very, he dryly responds. Well, the way I see it, you've got 3 options from here on out. First is to just ignore her. Let her decision bite her in the ass. Second is to kill that schmuck and make it up to her when she starts hating you. And third, wait and see what happens. Who knows, maybe her boyfriend actually changed. As long as he doesn't kill her, you can always say, I told you so, when you'll rescue her again. She grins. What would you do if this was your brother in this situation? Him? She snickers. I pity the insane chick that finds him attractive enough to attack. Imagine he was a girl for a minute. I'm not sure. Not much I could do, thinking about it. She's has his her life. They can make their own decisions, even shitty ones. If you care enough, you can pick up the pieces once the dust settles. Yeah, I guess you're right, he reluctantly admits. Don't get me wrong, though. If this was Pilar, I'd laugh at him the entire time. Douchebag. She laughs. Fuck off. Pilar shouts from behind the barrier having the room. You're lucky I'm letting that asshole stay here. Talking shit about me is fine, but you're out the moment you two start fucking. See? Complete douchebag. Rebecca smirks. I'm not gonna talk shit about him now that he's not being an asshole for once. Ori shakes his head. So, about this date. I'm guessing you got nothing planned. Your sister being an idiot and all. He nods. Any ideas? Well, we can go window shopping for apartments. I kind of feel like dancing too. Maybe some drinking? You just want to go to a nightclub, don't you? Ori drawls, knowing her well enough at this point. No, do. Fine. Once we're done looking at places, we'll head down to a club. Lizzie's bar ain't an option, I'm guessing? Obviously, I can't relax at that place. If it ain't Susie trying to crawl up my ass at someone else I accidentally maimed. Sure, accidentally, not you too. Ori and Rebecca proceed to stroll through the main street of Kabuki, looking at various real estate offices. Unfortunately, the couple in that sub-district only had access to crappy ones on the border of Maelstrom territory, definitely not somewhere Ori or Rebecca wanted. They then drove to Little China, the bustling area providing far more options. Since the area was generally not under anyone's control due to the presence of the NCPD headquarters, it was far friendlier than most other places. That didn't mean you could let your guard down, however, as Ori and Bats had learned last time they were there. Hey, check out a place on the 5th floor in H10, 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, big enough looking main. Rebecca points out as she spots it through the scrolling advert board. I'm not too keen on staying in a mega building, he admits. Why not? It'd probably be safer than where you were staying. Those places have to have security with how many people live there. Security is half the reason. I don't want to get stopped coming home covered in blood. Plus, they'd have to ID my car if I wanted to keep it parked there, he retorts. She snorts. You do know there are ways around that, right? Pay the guys manning the cams some eddies every month, and they'll leave you alone. No questions asked. Where'd you hear that? Rebecca shrugs. Lots of places. Mox girls aren't exactly rich enough to get a nice place outside a mega building. They are, after all, basically multi-story slums. How much then? Bats and I were paying $3,000 a month. $2,000. Not bad considering it's around the same size as your last place. Alright, count me interested. Alright. There. I've got the debts. Now let's party, she exclaims. You know I'm trash at dancing, right? He says as she drags him along, presumably to her favorite club. He could dance, and if he wanted to, the Nanites could help him with it as they did fighting, but that kind of seemed like a waste. You can always learn, she dismisses. Is this a gay bar? Ori quietly asks her as they step into the brightly colored club, pounding music that sent shudders through his entire body, as if he'd been placed inside a giant vibrator. Maybe. Alls I know is they got the best drinks. The music ain't too bad either, she shouts over the music. It's called Alternative Pride. There's a fucking guy in a thong dancing in cage up there. So what? It's not like you're here to pick up girls. Why would you care? We're here together. So unless you got something against the Binders, get over yourself, she states, dragging him to the bar. Obviously, he had no reasonable argument to dispute her. After they get some drinks in them, the duo join the others on the floor. Ori's awkward dancing didn't really matter in the face of all the grinding Rebecca was doing against him. No one cared about how his arms were moving when his hands were caressing her thighs after all. There were a couple incidents where some guys tried to grab Ori's ass, but a stern talking to, translated, being cussed out, set things straight. With that, the night continued on great. Almost. It was an hour past midnight when Ori and Rebecca were beginning to settle down. the alcohol making them far more tired and frisky than usual. They'd been resting in a nearby booth when someone approached. Chapter 123, Encounter. Excuse me? What are you even drinking? Ori questions, pointing at Rebecca's bright pink cocktail. They call it the Night City Prolapse. Excuse me? That sounds absolutely disgusting, Ori says, making a face. Of course they'd serve something called that in this place. Hey, don't knock it till you try it, she says, pushing her straw towards him. I'm hoping you mean the drink. He jokes, sipping it. Excuse me. He smacks his lips a couple times. Strawberry? Strawberry schnapps with cream and a dash of wine. Or so they said. Still that nah dash. Excuse me, the man standing beside their table shouts, finally losing his patience at being ignored. The duo just turn to look at him, sending wary glances his way. Yeah? We're not deaf, you know. Rebecca questions, causing a vein to throb on the man's forehead. Then, since you clearly have ears, I am sad to say you both have to leave. Immediately, the colorfully dressed man says, What? Why? Rebecca exclaims, pretty tipsy from the night of revelry. The man glances around surreptitiously. Because, we've had some people asking for you both. Judging by their equipment, I would rather not have another death in my establishment. Ori scowls at that, but Rebecca twists her expression and smiles at the man. You care if we die? Am I your favorite customer? No, the man deadpants. Now please leave. All right, but first, could you point out our friends? Ori asks, the Nanites quickly helping him sober up at the approaching threat. They have made their way to the second floor. I will not point them out in order to preserve the current state of the building. Please, leave. Fine, but only because I like you, guy. Rebecca relents, finishing her drink and standing, stumbling slightly before grabbing Ori to keep herself upright. Thank you. If you do manage to return, I will waive your current tab as an apology. If you wouldn't mind, please exit through the back door. The man states. Ori and Rebecca follow the guy to the door, stepping out into the now dark, raining back alley. Rebecca rested her weight on his shoulder as he inconspicuously grips the revolver hidden in a holster. Any idea who's looking for us? He asks his companion. Rebecca shrugs. Nope. Probably some bozo looking for revenge. Wouldn't be a first. Happened to you before? Yay. Some guy hired me to stalk and protect his girl. Turned out she was getting some dick on the side. Told the guy and he didn't believe me. Refused to pay and everything, so I told his bitch what he had me do. And? Ori asks as they walk through the alleyway. She dumped his ass. Guy came crying to me threatening to break my legs if I didn't take what I said back. As if that would fix it. She laughs to herself. Did he? Survive? Probably. I only capped his knees. With guts. With guts. Shit. Ori mutters, kind of feeling sorry for the legless guy somewhere out there. He calls his car to automatically drive to their location as they step onto the street, only to pause when he spots a group of 4 people walking down the road towards them. They weren't regular folks obviously, each had a weapon already unholstered, and bits of armor here and there. Hey, Susan. He loudly names Rebecca, attempting to push her in the opposite direction. Let's go see if that pacifist club is still open. The fuck is Susan? You cheating on me? Rebecca groans, pursing her lips as he glares at her. Oh, you were trying dash, my bad. Hey, stop both of you. A woman steps ahead of the mercenary group, rifle in hand.
Sorry.
We don't want to buy anything. Ori says with an awkward laugh. Oi. She said stop, dash. Bang. A bullet kicks up dust next to Ori's foot, causing him to cease his movement. You really just shoot at my man? You try and die? Rebecca angrily shouts, attempting to reach for her own hidden pistol, but Ori stops her, not wanting to start a gunfight like this. They were at the disadvantage. They didn't have their favored weapons, he didn't have his grappling hook arm guard, and Rebecca was pretty drunk as it is. All right, what do you want? Ori questions as the group stop a good distance away. The lamppost above them flickers, and rain continues to fall. We're asking the questions here, boy, the woman states. How about an exchange then? You ask one, I ask one. Are you deaf or some dash? No, this is fine. I'll go first though. The woman says, lowering her rifle slightly. What are your names? Michael Afton. And she's Anya Gall. Ori offers. This ain't gonna work if you want to bullshit us, zombie, she growls. Why ask if you already know me, he retorts. So you admit it, you are zombie? One of the woman's men questions. He shrugs. Sure. My questions now dash. Sorry, but we've learned all we need. The woman grins maliciously as she raises her rifle, the others mimicking her. Bang, 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 bang. Rebecca opens fire before everyone, however, pushing Ori away and throwing herself to the side as she does so. Some bullets ricochet off of one of the larger man's cybernetic arms, but the rest pepper some non-vital areas. Ori uses the momentum Rebecca had granted him, rolling as he draws 6 revolver. Bang! He aims at the woman, but one of her men pushes her behind him, taking a .50 cal bullet the chest which forces him to the ground, not only from the force but also because his heart had essentially exploded. Fuckers! Light EM up! The woman roared, opening fire on Ori. He grimaces as he blocks his face, bullets penetrating the skin on his arm, stomach, and chest. The nanites turn his pain receptors off, allowing him to fire back with optimal accuracy. Unfortunately, one of her other men also joins in. Chapter 124, Assassin. Come on, you little bitch. I'll ruin you in front of your output. The bulky Merc shouts from behind cover as Rebecca fires at him. Wow, an ugly, dirty rapist? You're, like, 5 cliches wrapped up into one. Aren't you, asshole? Rebecca loudly taunts, slurring her words slightly. Ugly? I'll fucking kill you. The guy yells, standing from the cover and charging her position. That's what pissed you off? You're not smart either, huh? She unloads the rest of her bullets at him. She aims for his belly and legs since he was covering his face with his arms, but they don't seem to do much damage at all. Her caliber of bullets probably wasn't good enough to penetrate his subdermal armor. That'll show her for trying to dress up nicely. Small outfits mean small guns. He barrels around the car she was using as cover and crashes into her, picking her up off of the ground and slamming her back into a nearby wall, knocking the air out of her lungs. Of course, this disagrees with her stomach, forcing up all of her drinks as she vomits directly in the guy's face. Guh, what the fuck? Haha, what's wrong? Rebecca laughs as she sucks in air and wipes her mouth. Never had a gal vomit on your chest before? Or are you the shit on my chest kind of guy? You definitely look it. She smiles smugly, reloading her weapon. You fucking.
Come out, zombie.
I thought you were tougher than this. The woman shouts as Ori takes cover behind some nearby dumpsters. He'd been riddled with enough lead to cause heavy metal poisoning for any regular person, but the nanites were doing work healing everything. Who hired you, bitch? Come out and I'll tell you. A gift for your last moments. Bang. He takes a shot and the woman ducks, barely avoiding the bullet that shears a line through her hair. All right then. Tap, tap, tap. Ori glances down at the ground where a grenade had just landed, his eyes widening. Shit, he mentally shouts, grabbing the dumpster and tipping it over atop it just as it explodes. Bong. The heavy metal object thankfully blocks the shrapnel, but the sound alone makes his ears ring for a couple moments. He throws himself against the wall as the woman and her minions sprint around the corner, firing their weapons. He manages to evade them and run through the alley, feinting his retreat around the corner while waiting for them to approach. Fucker thinks he can run. I'll show dash, the minion starts, but gets interrupted as Ori's fist slams into his throat, causing a cracking sound to ring out. The guy falls to the ground choking on his own blood, and Ori turns his attention to the woman. She unloads some bullets into his chest, undoubtedly piercing vital organs, but Ori grits his teeth and bears through it, causing her eyes to widen. What? Just fucking die already. You first? He growls with a rasp, unable to get a breath in due to his damaged lungs. She tries to go for another shot, but he beats her to it, firing 6 revolver as her hand. Bang. He blows 4 fingers off, causing her to drop her rifle, then fires another at her knee, completely decimating it. She screams painfully at her injuries, but maintains a glare at him, despite the tears pouring from her eyes. They widen, however, as he spits a number of deformed, bloody bullets at the floor, regurgitating from his lungs and stomach. What are you? They call me zombie for a reason, bitch. He slides her rifle away before kicking her on her front, searching her for any more weapons. Now, why don't you tell me who you are? He asks as he tosses away a number of hidden pistols. And my guy will have captured your input. Let me go or she's done for. He crooks a brow at her. Are you good? Ori. Yeah. What do you want to do with this guy? Shot his dick off and he won't last. Tongue sticking out. Rebecca. Ori smirks and focuses on the woman. Your buddy failed as badly as the rest of you. He leans down and pushes the barrel of his revolver against her temple. Now, information. The woman ended up spilling her guts after. Well, spilling her guts. Apparently, she and her guys were just a mercenary group hired to assassinate them. She didn't know who hired her, but the group's fixer was Rogue, which definitely pissed Ori off. Was it a breach of trust to allow someone to hire Mercs to kill him? Yep. Did it sound like something Rogue would do? Yep. Not that he could complain. He wouldn't want Rogue telling his target that there was a hit on him. Though it did seem odd she'd allow people to hunt a Merc who worked with her. Maybe their relationship wasn't that close though? Regardless, there were a number of people who would want him dead. Maelstrom, Tiger Claws, Biotechnica, Scavs, hell, even the NCPD might have done it. You alright, lamppost? Rebecca asks as she walks over, ignoring the bloody corpse of the female Merc at his feet. She herself had a bloody nose, and her tight outfit had some tears in too. Yeah, Looks like someone's put a hit out on us. You, Sasha, me, and Six. Means they probably don't know Six is dead yet. Or they can't be asked to change what they tell their mercs. Not the Tigers, then. They would have seen us carry Six headless body out of their building. Rebecca concludes. Whatever, I'm tired. Let's get back and talk about it with Sasha. Ori mutters. Nah, let's rent a hotel. My bro won't like what I'm gonna do to you, she says with a flushed face. Was that because of the alcohol? Or did she just get horny from the fight? Kinky psycho bitch. Fine. You're gonna have to do the legwork though. I ain't moving as soon as I lay down. Chapter 125. Okay, Ada. Yeah, just 2 plates of pancakes. Extra syrup. Rebecca tiredly asks the waitress in Tom's diner. And you? The woman asks, turning to Ori. Some eggs, bacon, and an Irish coffee. He waves her off. Ain't it a little early to be drinking? Rebecca questions as she leans heavily on the table before her. Need something to kick me in the ass. We've got work to do, and you wrung me dry all night, he retorts. Think we should have ordered something for Sasha? She shrugs with a smug grin. I'll ask for a small plate of milk. So, what are we going to be doing? We're not going to try kidnap the queen, are we? He shakes his head, but before he can reply a beep rings out, a call coming in from an anonymous number. Funny, he'd just avoided an assassination, and he was getting contacted by a stranger. He sends a meaningful look at Rebecca and answers the call. Yo, who's this? He asks, leaning back into his booth chair. Greetings. I am Wakako Okada. I'm sure you've heard of me? An old, rasping female voice states with certainty. He crooks a brow, trying to wring his mind for information. Ah, the fixer working in Japantown? That is correct. Lesser known as my position of authority amongst a certain faction you have recently antagonized, Mr. Zombie, she drawls. Dunno what you're talking about? He instantly reacts with the rehearsed response. Do not play coy with me, boy. I am well aware of your identity. As for how, I would rather withhold such information until the time calls for it. He scowls. So you're the one who sent the assassins then? Trying to get me back for what I did to that slave shop? You upset about your drugs getting confiscated? He half questions, half taunts as his tone becomes heated. Humph, I do not know of these assassins that you speak of, but there is a high likelihood they came from my faction, or at least a part of it. She trails off ominously. What do you mean, a part of it? He questions. She said she was in a position of authority among the Tiger Claws, so shouldn't she know who targeted him? If the Claws were even responsible. The woman chuckles lowly over the call. Outsiders do not know this, but the Tiger Claws are currently going through a identity crisis. A civil war you might call it, formed around its very foundations. Why are you telling me this? Why did you even call me? Ori interjects, having enough of this annoying granny's voice. Because, Mr. Zombie, I believe we could help one another. The building you helped uncover belonged to our opposition. Had you not done so, we would have acted with some more grace, of course, she states, hubris clear in her tone. Why don't you explain to me why you're in a civil war in the first place? What sets you apart from the guys I attacked? He asks, incredibly suspicious about all of this. There was a high chance that this was just a ploy to pull him out into the open for an ambush. After all, he'd heard nothing about infighting within the Tiger Claws. Wakako hums in thought for a moment. For one, enslavement is certainly not something permissible, which I suspect is appealing to you. Right, and the dollhouses? What about those? He asks with furrowed brows. Dollhouses were some of the most lucrative businesses the Tiger Claws owned. The workers were implanted with doll chips, and most weren't allowed to quit. They will continue their operation, without the subjugation of employees, of course. There are no small number of people willing to work in such an industry without chains binding them, she explains. And the glitter? Continued production. You cannot expect us to throw away such a lucrative trade. It is the unfortunate reality here. If we don't provide the drugs people buy, then someone else will. As much as Ori wanted to dispute that, he couldn't. If he were in their shoes, he'd continue selling the drug, especially since the people who were already dependent on it wouldn't go cold turkey just because the Tiger Claws stop. No, they'd go somewhere else, get crappier, probably more dangerous alternatives. That all sounds great, but I have a hard time believing anything that comes out of your mouth. Why don't you tell me what you want from me so we can move on with our lives? Ori states. Very well. I wish to hire you for some jobs in Japantown, particularly against groups of rogue Tiger Claws that have decided they know better than their leaders. The young, stupid, and violent need to be quelled before they can infect the rest of the gang. I refuse. That all? Ori curtly says. Caught off guard by the abrupt rejection, Wakako pauses. Perhaps you misheard me. No, I just don't want to work with you. Ori cuts her off. Do you not want revenge for what happened to your dear sister? She asks, bringing a scowl to his face. Yeah, maybe I should start with you, since you're so familiar with it. She snorts. Dispense with the threats, boy. You would die before you stepped into the same district as me. Oh yeah? You want to bet? I will leave you with my offer. Call this number if you have a change of mind. I do believe we could benefit each other, but you must lose the childishness first. Beep. Sighing, Ori looks back up, finding Sasha sitting next to Rebecca, eating his food and drinking his Irish coffee. Who was it? Rebecca asks with a mouthful of pancakes. Some tiger claw bitch called Wakako Okaka, a fixer apparently. He answers, grabbing his half-drunk coffee back and ordering some more food. HM? I think I know her. One of the most respected fixers around. You didn't piss her off, did you? Sasha asks. Air? Chapter 126. Bitchier. Air. You didn't. Sasha asks incredulously. She wanted us to do work for the tiger claws. I told her no. He states, not mentioning his threat to kill her. Really? That's good. You always get so riled up with that kind of thing. She mutters, chewing some bacon. You guys know about this? She talked about some civil war in the claws, her group against young, ambitious, idiots or something. He questions. No. The tiger claws aren't all that friendly with outsiders. I doubt they'd willingly tell anyone about infighting unless it was getting really bad. Sasha remarks. Rebecca nods. That fixer must really want you if she told you about it then. Or maybe she wants to flatline you. Either way, she shrugs. Did you find out who Fujino was working with? Sasha inquires, causing Ori to blush and Rebecca to laugh. Haha, like Lamppost here cared about who he was working for. He ditched his apartment, 'cause his sis wanted to get dicked. She snickers. Ori just sighs. That wasn't really on my mind when I was questioning him. He admits. Well, you can ask him later, can't you? Sasha asks. Hmph, hell no. That Jap guy is apparently pretty rapey. If Ori doesn't shoot him then I just might, to save everyone the trouble. Rebecca states. I'll ask Bats to look into it. Ori reluctantly obliges. So, we're gonna talk about us almost getting domed last night, right? Rebecca wonders. You got attacked? Sasha blurts out. Did I forget to mention that? Ori awkwardly mutters. Yes, you did. Well, since you know now, I was gonna ask for your advice then call Rogue to see what's up. I can already guess she'll not say anything, but maybe we can ferret something out of her. Sasha sniffs. Not likely. She's not the best fixer for a reason. Not giving out her clients' details is a must if she wants to keep her rep and not die. Rebecca pushes her plate away from her. Fuck it and just call her. Not like we're gonna plan out some way to turn the ice bitch into a hot Is she hot? No, kinda. But yeah, let me just call her, he sighs, accessing his interface. Last chance, anything you want me to get in? Ask her if she sent Wakako your number. Rogue should be one of the only people who know your debts. Sasha adds. Good idea. Find out if she's a snitch and a bitch. Rebecca chuckles. Calling Rogue a Mindiers? Calling Rogue a Mindiers? Beep. Zombie. Rogue drawls questioningly. Rogue. I'm busy, get to it, or I'm hanging up. I just needed to ask you a couple things. The strangest thing happened last night. Some guys ambushed me in a club and tried to flatline me. When I dealt with them, they said they got hired through you. Now, I'm not saying you're a backstabbing bitch, but I'm not saying that dash. Ugh, I get it. She interjects, not amused but his skirting around the topic. You know their names? No, just one girl with 3 men. Ori states. HM, you killed the cruisers then. Some newbies trying to make a quick buck, and over their heads I'd thought when they took the job. Ori pauses. You say that like they aren't the only ones? He says, she should have known who he was referring to, unless there were multiple groups gunning for him. They aren't. Rogue confirms. Who put out the hit? Can't say. Can't or won't. Ori angrily asks. Both? She smugly replies. I don't need to know the client's identity, as long as they pay up front. And you see nothing wrong with sending people to kill me? We work together, he argues. First of all, I didn't send anyone. I just connected the Mercs with the client. Besides, I'm a fixer, not your minder. You're in Night City now. You should have been expecting assassinations after what you did to Biotechnica. Most Mercs know Zombie by now, she states. I know you, Rogue. Even if you didn't know at first, you would have investigated who they're going after. You won't tell me? Fine. But I want to know if it's a single person, gang, or corpo after me. What's in it for me? She asks, not sounding very convinced. Nothing. Maybe you'll get some karma BAC, he grouses. It ain't a single person. I'll tell you that much. So gang or corpo, huh? You seriously not gonna just tell me? He questions. As I said, I'm not your minder. Can you at least tell me how many Edgerunners you've sent after me? He sighs. Minus the cruisers, you've got 2 more groups after you, and 1 solo. No, I'm not gonna tell you their names, she adds before he can get a word in. Fine, one last thing. You speak to Wakako Okaka lately? He challenges. That. She did contact me the other day, asking about the Merc who made a war zone in a part of Japantown. Why? She threatens to string you up with barbed wire, or something. Or maybe she wanted you as a gigolo, she snickers. Not funny, and none of your business, he retorts. Really? After all the info I've given you? He shakes his head. Yeah, really helpful. I'd be friendlier if getting anything of worth wasn't like pulling teeth. If you must know, she offered me a job, that's it. I'm hanging up, try not to send any more dead men at me. Beep. Welp, looks like it ain't the end of hunting season just yet, he says, glancing at Rebecca and Sasha. Rogue was actually useful? Rebecca asks, surprised. He shrugs. Kinda? Maybe she was feeling bad because she didn't withhold everything. Or maybe she's just playing you? Maybe? Rogue never struck me as sadistic though. Sasha states. Who cares? You know the names of the guys hunting us? Rebecca asks him. No, only that there's 2 groups and 1 solo. Chapter 127. Rule Ruler. The revelation of the bounty hunters had the group somewhat wary of things, despite the cruiser's ineffectiveness. The group had ambushed Ori and Rebecca while they were drunk, lacked their main weapons, and did so without Sasha nearby. By all accounts, they should have won the encounter. Fortunately, the Merc group turned out to be subpar in combat, even if they were rather good at tracking. With the threat known, the trio took a trip to some local Ripper docks to find some good cybernetics to help them out. Sasha upgraded her RAM, enhancing her netrunning and hacking capabilities. Rebecca, remembering her physical disadvantage against the large Merc, had her musculature enhanced with some synthetic muscle fibers. This didn't make her anywhere near as strong as Ori, of course, simply due to her lithe body type and the spec of the actual cyberware. Still, she could probably beat any unenhanced human, barring those at the level of Olympic athletes. As for Ori, well, he wanted to get some subdermal armor, but the Nanites informed him of yet another problem with that. Since they were unable to alter or modify the cyberware, any damage taken might just cripple him, regardless of his regeneration. It was like having shards of glass in a wound. It wouldn't heal. Even if it did, it wouldn't remove the problem. Now imagine that but a glass layer of skin around his entire body. To put it simply, it was strangely more effective to just let himself get shot to pieces and heal it afterwards. Which wasn't really a problem now that he couldn't die from having his head explode or something similar. The only cyberware he ended up getting was a cheap biomonitor that would instantly translate the state of his body to nanites, allowing them to heal him far more effectively. The trio continued doing various gigs, though they only took ones that were relatively easy to deal with, allowing them the ability to retaliate should the bounty hunters make a move. Always sticking together and carrying their best gear on them was a must, and the precautions only felt more and more important as time went on. After all, a hasty ambush like the cruisers had failed already. Who's to say the other groups would be that easy? Bats, why'd you call? Something happen? Ori questions as he sits next to the Ripper dock at the small ramen stall, next to Kabuki Market. He'd left Rebecca at Sasha's place to continue browsing apartments. They'd looked at the available joint in the H10 mega building, but the state the previous owner had left it in made it a quick no for the duo. Used needles covered the floor along with split-open rotten bags of trash, rotting low-tier wall paint, and bug-infested furniture. Seriously, it'd cost more to have someone clean it than to rent it for a year. Bats sends him a slight smile. Just wanted to update you on things at home. You could have done that over the phone? Ori retorts suspiciously. He could be chilling with Rebecca and Sasha right now. Not that Bats was bad company. It's just that he preferred his girlfriend and miss out on the chance to have a meal with my nephew? You've been ghosting me, he states matter-of-factly. No, I came now, didn't I? I just didn't want to hear you talk about Kat and Fuji. He spits the last name. You asked me to help pay for that cunt cyberware again, and I'll buy a spare arm just to beat you with it, he warns. Noted. Bats chuckles. Besides, I was just asking for a loan. That guy can't exactly work with one arm and no fingers. It's tough enough covering the rent without him sitting around like a deadbeat. Ori sniffs sourly. Just kick his ass out then. Kat would follow. I'm not letting her roam the street. We only just got her back. Bats mutters. She doing fine then? Bats shrugs, nodding forwards at the stall. Ask her yourself. Ori crook a brow and turns, finding his sister standing in front of him with an apron on and short black hair covered by a hairnet. She looked better, slightly less gaunt and now lacking the deep black bags under her eyes. Kat, how's working life treating you? He demurely asks. Fine. Easier than cooking for you and Dad. People aren't so picky, she states. And please don't talk like that about Fuji. Fuji? That's some kind of shit-tasting ramen? Must be something only retards would tolerate. Or a singular retard. He stares pointedly at her. Ha, funny. She deadpants. I'd rather have crappy food than no food at all though. Doesn't matter if the ramen's bad if the soba runs away like a bitch. Bitch? You're the ungrateful dash, Ori glowers. But Bats interjects, throwing his hands between the siblings. Hold it. We don't need to talk about that guy right now. It's just family here. Can we stop going at each other's necks and relax for once? Fine. They both say simultaneously. Jinx. Jinx shit. Cat exclaims first, prompting a curse from Ori. Promise to stop being an asshole to Fuji. Cat states, attempting to use her authority as Jinxer. Impossible. Ask for something else. Ori sharply retorts. Then, pay for F-. No. Oh come on. Where's your honor, Mr. Big Shot Merc? She complains. You can't win at Jinx and ask a guy to give you his kidney? It's not that bad. Yeah, it is. Bats just groans and slumps on his stool as he watches the siblings bicker. Still, like this, they kinda reminded him of the old days. As Victor, I order you to get on your knees and kiss my feet. Just ask for something normal, or Jinx wars are over. You can't do that. War never changes. Tell that to Hiroshima. Hiroshi what? Goddamn. Did Dad drop you or something, you dunce? Fuck you. Bat size, how'd you handle this, Iman? Chapter 128. Quentin Queston. The duo argue back and forth for 20 minutes or so until the actual stall owner comes by and basically demands that Ori and Bats buy something. They do, if not because they were hungry then to let Cat keep her job. The ramen, despite her best effort, was shit. Low-quality SCOP that was barely more appetizing than kibble. Ori and Bats discussed potential cyberware he could potentially look into when he suddenly received a call. Quentin? Ori excuses himself from Bats and leans backwards, his eyes flashing as he accepts the call. Beep. Quentin, what's up? He asks as a screen of the fixer pops up, showing him lounging on a luxurious couch, cigar in one hand and his other cupping the breast of some hot chick. Doing well for himself apparently. Ori, you doing good? Quentin happily asks. Just about. Not as good as you apparently. The fixer laughs, the girl at his side giggling too despite clearly having no idea what's happening. Her body gave up the development of her brain in favor of her breasts, presumably. Yeah, pretty good I'd say. But hey, I'm not someone to leave my buddy hanging. I've got a job for you. Ori wets his lips. Tell me about it before I commit to anything. I've kinda got guys hunting my ass right now. Really? Would have thought everyone is too scared of you by now. You're really making a name for yourself, you know. Some acquaintances of mine occasionally ask if you're available.
Corpo?
You didn't tell him anything, did you? He questions, wondering if Quentin slipped at all. He already had Wakako on his ass. He didn't need anyone else. Obviously. But hey, anyway, let me give you a rundown of things. See if you want in? He pauses and leans forwards, waving away his chick. You heard street racing?
Norge?
Really? You don't watch the news of something? Quentin shakes his head. Whatever. Basically people could together and race for a prize. You drive, you shoot each other. Whoever wins gets a grand prize. And you want me to get it? I'm not that good a driver, you know. Ori mutters. Driving doesn't matter if you kill every other racer. And no, I don't give a shit about the prize. Then what's in it for you? Ori asks, slightly confused. Quentin grins. Bets. Some friends of mine need some cash quick, and this is about the best way to do it. They place bets on you. I pay off some of the other drivers to get you the win. You do what you do best and everyone's happy. Except the losers, but hopefully they'll be dead by the end of it. What's the prize anyway? And how many people are competing? And where is this even being held? Ori asks, still thoroughly confused about all of it. First place prize should be around 50,000 eddies, but a percentage of the bets gets added on top of it. Since my friends and I will be investing, that should boost it up to around 75,000, depending on the rates. As for how many? Not sure. There's a number of races and a shit ton of people that start, but by the time the finals come around, there's only a fraction of the racers left. For obvious reasons. He holds up a device which displays a holographic map. This is where the first race is being held. Wait, Santo Domingo? They're having death races in the city? Ori questions, completely baffled. Quentin just shrugs. Yeah, locals don't usually mind, and the organizers pay off the cops during. Only problem you might run into are the gangs, but they'll stay out of the way. No one wants to deal with 50 heavily armed, pissed-off racers. He was going to reject Quentin's offer, but hearing how many eddies are on the line makes it hard to pass up. With that, he could buy Charlie her cyberware as soon as he got paid. No more needing to pay to keep her alive, and no more worrying if he'd have enough to cover the hospital expenses. Fucking no insurance. Still, he didn't think he had the car for the job. Sure, his current ride could take a beating, but compared to vehicles specifically designed for that kind of racing, he doubted it'd hold up. After all, he was sure some fucking retard would come along with a whole-ass cannon strapped to his car. Or just a shitload of explosives. You got a car I can use? Mine's not really suited for it. He asks, wondering if he could permanently borrow the car afterwards. Having two vehicles at his disposal was probably a good idea, come to think of it. Of course. Won't tell you what it is yet since we're still testing which will be best for the job, but whatever gets picked should be enough.
Quentin assure.
Right. Any other rules I should know about? Your team can have as many people as you want, but keeping it low is the standard. Less weight means faster wheels. You can't shoot anyone if you can't catch him anyway. Oh, and no outside action. You hire someone to fuck with the race and you're done. Trust me, you don't want to mess with the organizers. If they can pay off the NCPD and leave half a sub-district in rubble, they can deal with some cheaters. What about netrunning? Anything about that? He asks, thinking of Sasha. Hacking someone's cyberware mid-race and forcing them to crash into a building would probably be a good strategy. Planning on bringing Sasha then? Good choice. Quentin smiles with a faint blush. But yeah, if she's on your team, she can do whatever. The race will have netrunners of their own keeping an eye on things, so don't try to hire an external one. Actually, just don't cheat, period. There'll be a lot riding on this, and if you lose, you'll piss off a lot of people. Both of us will probably not last the next week if that happens. Quentin warns. Got it. I accept, by the way. Ori states. Haha. I knew I could count on you, Ori. I'll send you the debts later. You should probably brush up on your driving too. Anyway, my girl's sending me the eyes and I ain't missing out. See why later. Beep. Living his best life.
Cahpters 129, insistait de suicide.
Rebecca and Sasha were surprised to hear about their new gig. Neither had thought they'd ever be involved in a death race. Yet now they were being asked to win one. While Rebecca was excited about the prospect, Sasha was slightly more uncertain. She'd only just learned that bounty hunters were after them. Yet now they were participating in something so public? Her worries weren't eased even after Ori had explained how many eddies were on the line. Indeed, they just got worse. Knowing that she was going to be racing under the banner of a dozen or so corpos that would have them killed should they lose wasn't exactly reassuring. Ori had his own nerves, of course, so he elected to get some proper practice with them, setting up some basic targets in the desert and raced through the area as the girls shot at them. They were good, despite Sasha needing some extra time working on shooting moving targets. His driving abilities also work, but even with that, he needed proper practice with the vehicle Quentin was going to send them. After all, driving different cars was like shooting different weapons. You could be shit with one and excellent with another. Unfortunately, there were apparently going to be delays with the vehicle, leaving the trio without the ability to practice for the first race. That wasn't to say they had nothing to do, however, as was made clear just recently. Ori had just walked past the cart station when his vision started slowly crackling, static buzzing in his ears as his stride slowed to a pause. Frowning, he taps the side of his head with his palm, thinking his interface was malfunctioning or something, but he quickly realized that wasn't the case when all of his vision became filled with black and white interference static. Greetings, zombie. And goodbye. And $GJ $*at. Disconnecting interface immediately. Flesh administrator. The nanites quickly say, pulling the plug and causing him to fall straight on his face. *Thuluam. Directly in front of him was a passing cart on the track, and around him were panicking civilians on the platform, most staring at him with fear and consternation. He quickly realized what had just happened. Some fucker had hacked him and tried to have him throw himself in front of a train. Growling, he climbs to his feet and storms out of the place, looking around for anyone who looked even somewhat suspicious. Obviously, he found no one. No netrunner was dumb enough to stick around after a failed hack after all. He pulls out his holophone since he was unable to use his interface and quickly calls Sasha, telling her about the situation, and she was just as surprised as he is. He has the nanites restore his interface and allows her to jack in, hoping she could identify who it was by any traces they might have left. This, too, failed. Since the hack had been performed quite close to him, there were almost no identifying marks left, as you might find from a long-distance one. Of course, this could be ignored if the runner knew what they were doing, but someone like that wouldn't need to lower themselves to assassinating simple mercs since most corpos would pay their body parts to have them. He heads to Lizzie's bar, gets a change of clothes to make sure he wasn't being followed, and then storms to Sasha's place. There, he finds her in her spare bedroom, dumping ice into a large bathtub with a shit ton of wires sprawled on the ground, connecting to the walls and electronics. Huh, never knew you had a setup like this, Ori admits, feeling his adrenaline at almost getting mulched by a train fade. I try not to use it. The energy costs are stupid, and refilling it with ice is annoying, she states. Can't you just get a netrunner suit? The cheap ones need a coolant system connected to them, and the good ones cost more than most Borgs spend on cyberware, she retorts before shaking her head. Think this is one of the bounty hunters? Ori shrugs. Dunno. I heard netrunner are supposed to be rare in this biz, ignoring you, Kiwi, and Lucy. Well, not rare enough it seems. Could you? She gestures for him to turn around, her brow furrowed. He nods gingerly and forces himself not to look as he hears her unzip her clothes and drop into the ice bath. All right, she stutters out with a shiver and jacks into the servers. You said this happened at Ellison? He sits next to her and nods, trying to stop himself from peeking through the ice at her body. He was 16, girlfriend or not, he was still a horny bastard. Yeah. Anything you can do? I'll check the cams. The runner should have been quite close to you to get a hack like that. The recording should have something, she states, opening up a holoscreen for Ori to watch her progress. He observes as she rewinds the footage until he came into view. Damn, he's hot. Ori can't help but joke, prompting a chuckle from Sasha. Concentrate, she orders, starting the recording in real time. Watching him stroll down the street like a meerkat that knew a hawk was gunning for him. The street was crowded with hundreds of people, making it almost impossible to pick someone apart from the crowd. Fortunately, the thing that most mercs got to ease their lives also aided the duo in this task. There were a number of blurry faces outside of Ori's. Some looked to be just regular corpos, business owners. Some were obviously less scrupulous, judging by the bulges of weapons on their hips. But after 10 minutes of micro-analyzing the scene, they'd picked out around 3 people who could be the assassin. One white guy in a jacket with slight tiger claw colorings who'd been walking a couple meters ahead of Ori at the time. A black woman who'd been on the opposite side of the street. And finally, someone with their hood up wearing gloves and anything else that might identify their ethnicity or build. Chapter 130, Brain Dancing. If I had to bet, I'd say the guy with his hood up is the one. Ori remarks, stating the obvious. Maybe, but that just makes our job harder. There's no identifiable characteristics other than their clothes we can go off of. She sighs. Let's backtrack and see where they'd come from. Their suspicions proved character, as whoever it was seemed to have been tracking Ori from multiple blocks away. They'd stepped out from a net cafe as he passed and followed from behind at an exact distance, allowing them to more easily hack his systems. So, what can we do with this? Ori questions. Nothing really. Sasha admits, no traces, no info, and even if we asked the cafe owner, they'd probably not know who we were talking about. She slumps in the tub, resting her arms on the sides. Shame you didn't have a braindance chip installed. We might have been able to find some clues through it. Braindance chip? He questions. I get BDs, but a chip for it? It's kinda complicated. Basically, the chip's designed to record every brainwave with complete accuracy, so that it could be later exported and shared. How else do you think those pornos are made? She grins. And don't say you haven't seen him. He chuckles. Yeah, I guess that makes sense. He pauses. Wait, didn't that sound kind of familiar? Collective, any chance you could replicate what she's suggesting? He mentally asks. We do not know. We could try, but we do not think any device is equipped to deal with the information load. A specialized interface would be required, and the time needed to process the data would render this exercise pointless. Flesh Administrator. Sasha, can I jack in? I've got a cyberware that works similarly to those chips. Maybe we could find something? She crooks a brow at him. Okay, but don't expect anything. My stuff isn't really set up to handle unedited BDs. He nods, jacking in and allowing the nanites to release the stream of information. The lights in the room flicker and the equipment release a loud buzzing noise as the fans and cooling systems work overtime to keep everyone not on fire. Ori, slower, or you're going to wreck my processors. Sasha exclaims, prompting the nanites to slow the flow by 3/4. Still, it was too fast, so they limited it all the way up to 95%. The equipment was still working, chugging, but at least it wasn't at risk of spontaneous combustion. The duo looked down at the holoscreen as faint images begin to flash. Random sounds blurred out, some familiar and some not, while the images seemed distorted or jumbled, as if someone had shredded a photo and asked a toddler to put it back together. Ori sighs, guess that's a no-go. To his surprise, however, Sasha shakes her head. No, this could actually work. She gestures at the screen. I said before my equipment wasn't designed for this, so everything is getting processed at once instead of whatever the method BD editors use. Sounds are getting mixed with visuals, heat signatures are getting mixed with other sensory input. Not to mention, at this rate it'd take 4 straight days to download all of it. Huh. Really? Ori hums in thought. We're in luck too. You have a good friend who's famous for this kind of thing? Think Judy would help us out? Yeah. You're gonna have to pay me for this? Judy sheepishly states, looking back and forth between Ori and Sasha. That's fine, but why? Ori asks. Because I'd have to stop my current BD project to do yours. The delay will mess with my schedule, so? I get it. How much? Can you pay 7,000? That much for a delay? I'll pay it, but it's a bit much. Ori mutters, sending the eddies over the link. Judy chuckles tentatively. That's me being generous. She shakes her head. Let's get started? It takes 3 full hours to download the data from the nanites, and another hour after that to decompile it into something usable. Even with that, they couldn't immediately access it. The sensory overload would fry most people's brains, as the nanites, or chip, operated at a far higher capacity than an unenhanced brain could follow. Judy went through her usual process, folding all the information into packets that you could interact with inside the braindance, allowing you to get bite-sized pieces instead of the whole lot at once. Is it done? Sasha questions, looking over Judy's shoulder as she closes down a number of pages. Yep, all that's left is for someone to go inside and find what you want. I'd recommend someone other than Ori go. since he's liable to miss things due to the BD being based on his brainwaves. Judy explains. Sasha nods. I'll do it. Let's see who's hunting us, she says, sitting down and jacking in as the other duo watch everything from the monitors. Sasha accesses the brain dance and is momentarily blinded by the far-too-bright colors of the street. Each person's face is so clear she could see their blackheads, outside of those with interference software of course. While most software wouldn't work when viewed in a brain dance, there were higher-level ones that could, as shown by the blurry face of the Netrunner following Ori. See anything? Ori asks from outside the simulation. Not sure yet. Sasha mutters as she pushes her sight to the assassin. Again, while their face was concealed, their clothes weren't, allowing her to get a good, long look at them. The jacket was some regular thing you could buy at any strip mall, and the shirt underneath it was similar. The person's trousers were some synth leather, but had nothing all that identifiable, aside from a few stains from either ketchup or blood.